Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal. See playlist for other chapters and novels. Join now our Telegram channel now and enjoy exclusive early access. t.me/blood_immortal_official. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 441. All of you have got a point. Chapter 441. All of you have got a point. Within that group of people, suddenly, a burst of an abstruse aura burst out from Mie Changqi and Meng Hao. This aura was full of vicissitude and was long drawn. Boom! Thousands of miles away, the tribute statue of the founder ancestor of Glory sect began shaking tremendously. A beam of light shot out from the tribute sculpture, all the way into the heavens, tearing through every single layer of void it passed through. In the blink of an eye, it appeared right in the face of everyone right here. Looking at the scene before him, even Lin Fan was astounded. The god of battle, Meng Hao. The reincarnation emperor, Mie Changqi. And to think that the founder ancestor of Glory sect would be the god of war. As for the supreme being, Ving, and O, Vel, B, in C, Om. Lin Fan realized at this moment that the supreme being token was vibrating violently within his storage, desperately trying but unable to get out. Lin Fan chuckled before taking out the token. As a bright light flashed, the supreme being token floated before everyone, as an illusory figure appeared gradually. Lin Fan looked at the two illusory figures behind Mie Changqi and Meng Hao, shuddering within his heart at the same time. Just that aura alone was enough to raise everyone's goosebumps. At that moment, everyone awaited with bated breath. They were completely dumbfounded by the scene before them. This feeling of shock was especially profound for Grandmaster Yan and Senior Elder Wuya. The moment they caught sight of the illusory figure of their founder ancestor, they had an urge to prostrate and kneel down in respect. To think that their founder ancestor was lying within the tribute sculpture all this while. And at this moment, Grandmaster Yan finally understood the reason why the tribute sculpture could continue to impart down skills and items. This was the very reason behind it. Ha ha ha, look at the four of you living such miserable lives. Even the great reincarnation emperor, who was rumored to have an indestructible consciousness, couldn't escape the eventual outcome of falling. Within the void, the heavenly emperor Yuan, who had devoured the heavens will, burst out into a wild laughter. He looked at the four of them in absolute mockery. For a moment, there was a reminiscing look in his eyes. But that was replaced by those jeering eyes almost immediately. Heavenly Emperor, what's your purpose with all this? Even though the Supreme Being was only a single strain of consciousness right now, he looked up into the sky at the Heavenly Emperor Yuan with dominance. Purpose. Hope, of course. Look at all of you guys, submitting to a fate of living as cowards and wimps. Willing to live life eternally just like a bunch of spineless worms trapped in this world, only able to survive ignobly in secret. The Heavenly Emperor Yuan was extremely emotional right now. Heavenly Emperor, it's enough, can't you see the facts before your very eyes? Those are not existences that we can hope to fight against. We've fought through so many trials and tribulations just to make it back here from the upper world and lay down all these restrictions and confinements. What was all of that for? That was to retain this last bit of hope we have. The illusory figure of the god of war spoke out. Shut up, you have battled through eternity, never looking back even once. You were never someone who would bow down to adversities. But, look at you now. You're not worthy to even carry the title of god of war any longer. You're weak now, weak. You're no longer the god of war one used to know. Today, my aim shall be to break through all of these confinements right here and now. I shall take the human race with me to re-enter the upper world once more, so as to build a brand new future. The Heavenly Emperor glared at the four of them. Lin Fan was totally stunned right now. He totally couldn't catch any balls in this conversation these guys were having. All of you guys shut up. Lin Fan just had to interrupt in. He was getting a big headache just hearing out these guys. That holler surprised all 5 people who were arguing, as they stopped their conversation and cast all of their glances at Lin Fan. Junior, this is not an affair in which you can interfere. The reincarnation emperor looked at Lin Fan, his voice mighty and authoritative. Having experienced the path of life, death, and reincarnation time and again, it was as though this man had already attained the peak of the Tao, and could understand every single logic within the heaven and earth. Forget it, man. The four of you are just a strain of consciousness each, aren't you? What do you guys want? This guy here has devoured the heaven's will. Devoured. He's a whole, full being right now. If he wants to kill you guys, you would be right in the palms of his hands. The thing that Lin Fan hated the most was other people acting out bullshit right in front of him. And to him, each and every one of these people right here was going overboard with their bullshit. A god of war, a god of battle, a reincarnation emperor, a supreme being, and one more heavenly emperor Yuan. What the FCK? Each of their titles was even more imposing than the other. Thinking of how he didn't even have a title for himself, Lin Fan was feeling a little sad. Seemed like if he had the chance, he definitely had to give himself a really cool title as well. Haha, the heavenly emperor Yuan laughed maniacally in the sky. Look at the four of you. You can't even see the facts as clearly as a single young man here. He's right, all of you guys are just a single strain of consciousness each. None of you guys can stop me if your majesty wants to break through this world right here and now. Young man, fight with me against the upper world. The human race needs hope, and these guys here no longer have any bit of courage left. They're wimps. They can no longer remain as the hope of the human race, nor are they the glorious saints that should watch over the human race any longer. These guys are pathetic worms who are just struggling to protect their pitiful lives, shish tty cowards who are struggling in this world. The heavenly emperor Yuan glared at Lin Fan fervently, his heart burning with anticipation. All right, Lin Fan replied calmly to the heavenly emperor Yuan. Ha 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 ha, finally, someone gets me. There's finally someone who understands my thoughts. The four of you aren't even comparable to a single young man right here. You guys have truly lived your hundreds of thousands of years of life for nothing. You fools. The heavenly emperor Yuan reared his head back and laughed. The four supreme beings glared at Lin Fan and shook their heads helplessly. Do you know of the consequences of breaking through the barrier of this world? That means that if anyone were to break through beyond the greater celestial full cultivation state in the future, they would be able to enter the upper world. That upper world is the land which nightmares are made of. Humans are nothing but mere ants there. That place shall be the place where all humans are annihilated. Shut up, you four cowards. How could the fate of Xuanwang world be controlled by shish ts like you guys? Do you know why all the other races of the other worlds are able to head up to the upper world repeatedly without being sealed off? That's because they understand the true meaning of rebellion. They know that they've got to fight back. But, all you guys know is to avoid and hide. Look at all these other people here. They've all been shrouded in ignorance, unable to choose their own fates for all of their lives. The very reason for that is the selfishness of the four of you. How dare you impose your own ideals forcefully on all of these people? The heavenly emperor Yuan yelled. The four supreme beings gripped their fists tightly. Heavenly Emperor, what you're trying to do is to push Xuanwang world into a treacherous abyss. Don't you know that will only serve to hasten the annihilation of Xuanwang world? Out of the multitudes of worlds out there, do you know how many worlds have been destroyed? The Jinggang world, Dragon world, Dancheng world. Don't tell me that you don't know about the destruction of all these other worlds as well. By now, the supreme being was howling at the heavenly emperor Yuan in rage. Cowards are cowards. All of them have died with no regrets. That's because they've died trying. They've died fighting, while the four of you are playing with this world in your palms just because of your own selfish intents. At the end of the day, people here wouldn't even know why and how they were destroyed. They would die in the dark without any single bit of struggle or resistance. The heavenly emperor Yuan replied. Lin Fan did not want to reply too much. No matter who was right or wrong, none of it mattered to him. No one could judge either of the two parties in a situation as such. If Lin Fan truly had to choose, he felt that both sides had their own rights and reasons. Fate was meant to be seized by one's very own hands and not escaped from. If one were to be escaping fate continuously just to buy themselves a little more time, they might as well fight to their deaths and duel the fates. However, the supreme beings had their case as well. If one knew that it was a dead end no matter what, why bother resisting? They should just let it end as such as well. If he had to endure watching everyone close to him die tragically, Lin Fan could definitely not accept that fate either. That's enough, Heavenly Emperor Yuan. Return the heavens will to me. At this moment, He Yuhan, who had remained silent all this while, had finally spoken up. She was manifested from a single strain of the heavens' will's consciousness. There was no one else in this world who knew about Xuanwang world better than her. In order to seize back the heavens' will, she had purposefully chosen a man to be blessed by the heavens. The reason for grooming him was also that she could make use of his strength. The heavenly Emperor Yuan looked at He Yuan. Heaven's will, how have you fallen like this? For your own sake, you would rather choose cowardice along with these 4 people. Polluting the heavens' will is a crime punishable by death. Just that action alone would render every single last bit of your intents wrong. He Yuan stepped forth, 1 step at a time. She turned around and looked at Sha Yudian. That petite face of hers could not help but reveal an apologetic look. Brother Sha, I'm sorry. I hope you do not blame me for this. Suddenly, He Yuan's body rose into the air and turned into a bright glow of light. Sister Yuan, what are you talking about? Sha Yudian could feel his heart wrenching right now. It was as though he could sense that his sister Yuan was about to leave him. As though he was interlinked with He Yuan, the energy from Sha Yudian began to leak outwards as well. Chapter 442, The Shameless Lin Fan. Chapter 442, The Shameless Lin Fan. Brother Sha, I'm sorry. I've just been using you all this while. I've got my calling to follow. Streams of tears poured down from both sides of He Yuan's eyes. However, even that did not stop the motion of her hands. She had to seize back the heavens will no matter what. No, I don't blame you. Everything I have was given to me by you. No matter what you do, I'll never ever blame you for it. But please, I'm begging you, don't ever leave me. Sha Yudian cried out towards He Yuan. He could gradually feel an important part of his heart disappearing by the second. It was as though once this portion had dissipated entirely, Sister Yuan would disappear from his heart entirely as well. Brother Sha, He Yuan turned around to look at Sha Yudian's heart-wrenched face, and could not help but reveal a look of reluctance as well. Memories of their time together for the past tens of years began to scroll through her mind like a movie reel. Bit by bit, back from when they were kids all the way till now. Yuan, after you leave, I won't live in this world any longer either. I like you, I truly do. Have you ever felt the same for me? Sha Yudian was more of an oblivious guy when it came to matters of the heart usually. However, he was exceptionally sober right now. If he did not spill out his feelings right now, he had a feeling he might not get the chance to again. Upon hearing these words, the tears began pouring down the beautiful face as she nodded repeatedly, liked. I loved you, and even now, I love you more than ever. It's just that Bam! Suddenly, something shocking happened. Someone had punched the living daylights out of the emotional He Yuan, sending her flying towards the side of Sha Yudian. Bloody hell, how FC King touching was that? Even yours truly is nearly touched to tears by you lovebirds. Since you like him so much, then don't bloody leave. Lin Fan could not resist appearing right before He Yuan and punching her towards Sha Yudian. What are you doing? Looking at the half-swollen cheek on his fainted sister Yuhan's face, Sha Yudian hollered out to Lin Fan. Oh, it's all right. Don't worry about it. You don't have to thank me for it. This is something I feel I ought to do. Just take care of her nicely. That'll do for repayment. Lin Fan waved his hand dismissively. Of course, one should not harbor the need for gratitude when one did good deeds. Looking at everything, the heavenly Emperor Yuan let out a grin. Indeed, you're the man I have chosen. Lin Fan took a look at the heavenly Emperor Yuan. He then turned around to the 4 supreme beings. Well, I think all of you guys have got a point. Both sides have their reasons. Lin Fan said while standing in between both parties. Heavenly Emperor Yuan, you said that the 4 of them are cowards. But to me, that's not the case. All of them are working hard and diligently in their own ways. Otherwise, why would they be grooming these future generations and descendants of Xuanwang world, right? As for your stand, I agree as well. One should definitely fight for their own fates. Otherwise, I'm sure everyone would be indignant dying without even knowing the reason how or why they died. But, I've just got one thing to say. Lin Fan isn't a man who would push those that he wishes to protect into the dangers of the abyss and watch them struggle from within. Therefore, I am going to shoulder this burden on my very own and fight against fate. At times, quantity doesn't matter. No matter how many people you bring along with you to the upper world, it's useless. All you need is a single peerless prodigy that the world might not produce even in a billion years to face it all. And of course, I've got to humbly admit that I am that peerless prodigy genius that even a billion years may not produce. Return them the heavens will. I shall follow you along to the upper world and fight against this tragic fate. Lin Fan replied confidently. Upon hearing these words, every single person's jaws dropped entirely. They had seen all sorts of shamelessness in their lives. But for someone to be this blatantly tingly shameless. This was a first. Even boasting should have a limit, shouldn't it? A prodigy genius that the world might not even produce in a billion years. This. The heavenly Emperor Yuan stared at Lin Fan in absolute daze, then finally burst out laughing, Interesting. Interesting indeed. Ha ha ha, but on what grounds am I to believe you? Oh, on the basis that I, Lin Fan, alone, have tamed the Ancient One. Let me ask you, without borrowing the strength of the heaven's will, is the current you even a match for the Ancient One? Lin Fan asked. Heavenly Emperor Yuan glanced over at the Ancient One, who was behaving weirdly in the distance, before turning his head back to Lin Fan. His brows creased, as though he was deep in thought. Heavenly Emperor Yuan, you don't even have to think about it. Come, I'll just let you have a bout with my Ancient One to let you understand. At times, the only way to resolve a dispute is through a good fight. You're someone from the Xuanwang world. Thus, I believe that your intents and actions are all for the sake of the Xuanwang world as well. The only difference is your standpoint. This is just an issue of an ideological difference, that's all. Furthermore, it's been 10,000 years since you last entered the upper world. I'm sure even you yourself would not know how the situation is like up there right now. Even if you break through the heavenly barrier right now, all you'll be doing is sending everyone to their deaths needlessly. On the other hand, I, Lin Fan, am willing to head up there with you to check out the situation. Lin Fan continued. Ancient One, come here. Lin Fan beckoned over to the Ancient One, who was laying on the ground. Boom. N-O-V-E in .c ohm. Yes, Master. Instantly, the Ancient One flipped his body over and leapt before Lin Fan, asking with a look of pandering. Looking at how the terrifying Ancient One would bow down respectfully towards a human, Heavenly Emperor Yuan's mind was riddled with thoughts, as his face could not hide his disbelief. Lin Fan looked at the Ancient One before nodding his head in acknowledgement. Patting his storage, a large amount of bigris flew out and entered the tummy of the Ancient One. Boom. Instantly, that bigris that entered the Ancient One's body released their medicinal effects. The initially calm Ancient One instantly turned berserk. That pitch-black skin of his was flushed tomato red right now. Even those eyes that were filled with flattery were now replaced with immense desire. Huff, huff. The Ancient One breathed heavily and hurriedly before Lin Fan. Each breath was steaming hot. Lin Fan was really pleased with the state of the Ancient One right now. After swallowing this many bigras, his fighting strength should be doubled at least. But under the effect of the bigra, if he didn't release this strength, the Ancient One might truly go mad. Okay, go and penetrate him. Lin Fan's finger was pointed at the Heavenly Emperor Yuan in the sky, whose face was long petrified. Gra! The Ancient One howled out and shook his head fervently. In the eyes of the Ancient One, that mighty and imposing Heavenly Emperor Yuan was nothing more than a deep, dark, boundless cave right now. It was a really alluring and attractive cave, seducing one to enter at all costs. In that instant, the Ancient One's massive body leapt towards the Heavenly Emperor Yuan wildly. At the same time, those two giganormous lumps of meat at his chest swung left and right, slamming against each other and giving off a pleasant bouncing sound. The fusion of sweat and water. The clashing of strength and Tao. This was going to be a moment of a huge release. Looking at the state of the Ancient One, all four supreme beings let out a look of disbelief, unable to comprehend the scene at all. As for the Heavenly Emperor Yuan, his heart could only pound furiously while looking at the rapidly approaching Ancient One. Lin Fan turned his gazes towards the four supreme beings. The four of you should calm down as well. There's always a way to resolve issues. If you guys had really gone head-on with him just now, this battle might truly have been unavoidable. Reincarnation Emperor, God of War. The two of you are not thinking of taking over their bodies by leaving your strains of consciousness within them, are you? Lin Fan chuckled while asking. What sort of beings do you take us as? We're only grooming them. Once everything is settled, our consciousness will gradually dissipate. Upon hearing that question, the God of War spoke up immediately. He was the great God of War after all. How would he be doing such evil acts that veered off from the path of the righteous? That's good then. Lin Fan laughed before looking into the distance. The scene that was about to unfold would definitely be spectacular. The Ancient One, who had popped down all those bigras, no longer wanted to kill. All he wanted to do was to poke someone. Poke and pound harshly, releasing every last bit of desire within his heart. Lin Fan wondered if the Heavenly Emperor Yuan could take it. Chapter 443, A New Hope or Despair. Chapter 443, A New Hope or Despair. At that moment, a situation was unfolding over at the side of the Ancient One. Just what in the world is happening? Why has the Ancient One turned this way? The Heavenly Emperor Yuan was yelling madly, trying his best to dodge fully. The current Ancient One was leaving the Heavenly Emperor Yuan in fear. This was a complete beast here. Why had the mighty Ancient One, who had conquered over the ancient times, become as such? Bam! With a maddened howl, the Ancient One slapped his palms together, trapping the Heavenly Emperor Yuan within. Ha ha, I've got you now, he he he. Those burning red eyes of the Ancient One were sparkling brightly. Like an agile snake, his tongue, which was filled with lust, made its way towards the cheek of the Heavenly Emperor Yuan. Ever so lightly, he gave it a gentle lick. But, this single lick was like a downpour of rain for the Heavenly Emperor Yuan. The Heavenly Emperor Yuan was completely petrified right now. Since when had the Ancient One turned this sick? He was practically a savage right now. Within those burning eyes of the Ancient One, Heavenly Emperor Yuan could make out the boundless desire. This was not good. The Ancient One was definitely having stray thoughts right now. Suddenly, a big lumpy object appeared before the eyes of the Heavenly Emperor Yuan. The Ancient One had placed the head of the Heavenly Emperor Yuan in between those swollen lumps that were created by Lin Fan and, having him motorboating between them. Holy F***ck. In the past 10,000 years, the Heavenly Emperor Yuan had yet to spout out any vulgarities. However, he was completely blown out of his mind by the situation right now. Ving! The void vibrated as the Heavenly Emperor Yuan managed to slip out through a crack in the void. He glared at the Ancient One warily. Even though the cultivation state of the Ancient One was far from its peak, his physical body state was still way too strong. So strong that it could disregard practically any attack. Don't run, I want to poke you. The Ancient One screamed as his tongue flickered in the air. He then leapt out towards the Heavenly Emperor Yuan once more. The Supreme Being and the others were completely confounded by now. They could not bear to believe everything that was happening before their very eyes. This was way too piercing for their minds. What happened to the Ancient One? That tongue of his, which was spraying saliva left and right, seemed to be filled with limitless seduction. To think that it would lick at the Heavenly Emperor Yuan despicably. And what was worse was the fact that towering pillar at his crotch was totally erected. It was as though it was ready to wreak havoc on the bottom of Heavenly Emperor Yuan, poking the entire world out of his body. Lin Fan was watching this spectacular and entertaining show with extreme interest. The Ancient One was the Ancient One indeed. To think that every strike of his would be like a tiger pouncing out with complete accuracy. If not for the fact that the Heavenly Emperor Yuan was so good at running, he would have long been, pokey-ed, by the Ancient One. Ask him to stop. Make him stop. The Heavenly Emperor Yuan could take it no longer. The Ancient One was like a frenzied demon chasing him relentlessly from the back. In fact, the most terrifying thing for the Heavenly Emperor Yuan right now was the object at the groin of the Ancient One. Like a wild animal, it had enlarged massively, and was striking out at him. There were already a few close shaves where he was nearly poked by that gigantic object. Ancient One, don't you go overboard. The Heavenly Emperor Yuan was howling madly right now. I want to poke you. How can you do that? I want to poke you. Pokey. Hurry up and make him stop. I don't want to fight anymore. The Heavenly Emperor Yuan was sweating bucket loads right now. Even though he had fused with the Heaven's will, the Ancient One's attack style seemed to have gone so crazed that it was unfathomable. Do you believe that I'm a genius prodigy that even a billion years may not produce now? Lin Fan asked up into the air at the Heavenly Emperor Yuan. Yes, I do, yes, please hurry and make him stop. The Heavenly Emperor Yuan's eyes shone with fear. Even though the Ancient One's strength was definitely incomparable to his past self, the Heavenly Emperor Yuan was only barely able to dodge everything, even with the strength of the Heavens will put into use. Hee. Lin Fan chuckled. He then shouted over to the Ancient One, Ancient One, that's enough. Go and poke the ground yourself. The Ancient One, who was hot in the chase behind the Heavenly Emperor Yuan, was stunned for a moment. With a look of disappointment on his face, he went down to the ground alone and started humping up and down. Poke. This sound was like a woodpecker, loud and repetitive. The entire world shook under its tremendous force. Looking at the Ancient One, even the Heavenly Emperor Yuan's eyes were fraught with disbelief. This was one of the 8 utmost beings of the upper world. To think that it would be committing such a despicable act right now. Let alone the Heavenly Emperor Yuan, even the Supreme Beings watching this scene were glad that their consciousness was not a physical entity. Otherwise, they would definitely spit out blood and die right now. Lin Fan looked at everyone and started chuckling. All right, now that everything's over, we can sit down for a good discussion. After all, this concerns the fate of Xuanwang world. This isn't something that can be easily gone through with just a couple of words. Heavenly Emperor Yuan, are you still insistent on your ideals? Lin Fan asked him. That's right. Finally able to calm his heart, the Heavenly Emperor Yuan replied. Supreme Being, God of War, Reincarnation Emperor, God of Battle. Are you guys still insistent on your beliefs as well? Lin Fan asked them. That's right. We'll definitely not allow people from Xuanwang world to send themselves to their deaths for nothing. Lin Fan looked at the four of them, then at the Heavenly Emperor Yuan. He did not have too much of a reaction. After all, the final decision right now was on the Heavenly Emperor Yuan. With the Xuanwang world being split into two, the Heavenly Emperor Yuan had only devoured 3/4 of the heavens will of Xuanwang world. However, Lin Fan believed that if the Heavenly Emperor Yuan dared to appear before them as such, this meant that he must have the confidence of tearing down the heavenly barrier for sure. Thinking back on the deal he made with Yi Han, it was evident that he wanted to use the blood world as a stepping stone to directly break through this layer of the barrier. But, the fact that the Heavenly Emperor Yuan had not done so immediately and was willing to sit down for a proper discussion was evident of his intents to resolve this issue as well. If I had to stand on the side of the greater picture, I would agree with the four of them. However, if it were based on my personal selfish ideals, I would agree more with the thoughts of the Heavenly Emperor Yuan. If one did not fight, then what difference did one have from a dead fish? No matter how tough the road ahead may be, we must never shirk from the fear of danger and be a cowardly tortoise. We must always be ready to head forth and duel the fate. This was the first time ever that Lin Fan had made such a fair speech. Even though on the surface, Heavenly Emperor Yuan looked like the bad guy, Lin Fan knew that all this bad guy wanted was to release everyone from the shackles they were trapped with. You are different from them. At the same time, I understand your concerns. That's the reason why I did not tear down the heavenly barrier straight away and chose to place my faith in you. The Heavenly Emperor Yuan looked at Lin Fan. He then turned his gazes towards the four supreme beings. All of you no longer have the same hearts you had in the past. Back then, I was the weakest amongst all of you. However, even if all of you were to regain your full strength right now, you wouldn't be my match at all. After all, power stems from the heart. Your feeble and cowardly hearts have caused all of you to be weak. You. The four of them glared at the Heavenly Emperor Yuan, speechless. Eventually, they gave a cold snort and refused to continue talking. Kid, the fairest thing we could do now is to actually tear down the heavenly barrier. That's the only way to allow the entire Xuanwang world to break free. Everyone should be able to train up and fight together against the upper world. We shall break free from that fate of being trampled upon. The Heavenly Emperor Yuan continued. Lin Fan shook his head, his expression grim. No, just like the Supreme Being and the others, I have my own selfish intentions. I have precious people that I care about deeply, and do not wish to lose. Even though I may release them of this shackled fate, that is nothing compared to their lives. I would rather see them keep their lives than to have them chase after that fate where the probability of death is 9 out of 10. Even though that's selfish, isn't that the basic trait of all humans? I can choose to suppress and take you down while you're tearing down the heavenly barrier, but I will not do that. That's because I know of the difficulties that lie ahead. In order to protect all of them, I've got to be stronger. I've got to get so strong that I can fend against all odds. The Heavenly Emperor Yuan looked at Lin Fan before he burst out laughing, haha. ! Humans are indeed the most complex of all living beings. We were every bit like you back then, wanting to be strong in order to protect more people from suffering. However, we failed, and resorted to running away with our tails between our legs. But finally, I understand right now. One must depend on oneself. Back then, I had chosen to devour the heavens wool, but right now, I'm choosing to place my faith in you. I've already waited for tens of thousands of years. I don't mind waiting for one last hope. Thank you for your faith. Yours truly has never let anyone down till now. Lin Fan beamed confidently. Even though his heart was in turmoil, he had to be resolute and firm. Haha, the Heavenly Emperor Yuan reared his head into the skies and laughed out, tears streaming from both his eyes. It was as though he was finally letting go of every single bit of resentment and emotions he had kept in all these years. Was this a new hope or a new despair? Chapter 444, Ascent, End of Act 2. Chapter 444, Ascent, End of Act 2. Release the heavens will then. Now that everything was settled, Lin Fan was also obligated to head up to the upper world. How long did greater celestial full cultivation beings live for? Probably just a few hundred years. If one did not break through to a higher cultivation state, then the end result would still be death after those few hundred years. The purpose of cultivation was to defy the heavens, to steal life itself away from the fates. But to think that at the end of it all, the heavens were sealed itself. Therefore, no matter how hard they cultivated, they would be met with a threshold. Wasn't this just lying to oneself then? In actual fact, Lin Fan's personal thoughts were in line with that of the Heavenly Emperor Yuan. Alright, I'll return the heavens will to her then. The Heavenly Emperor Yuan had chosen to place his faith in Lin Fan. In this young man, he could sense a resolute and firm belief. He had an unwavering heart that was determined to duel against the fates itself. No, don't give it to her. If you give it to her, this physical self of hers that has manifested will no longer exist. Lin Fan remarked. Using his hand to tear through the void, he summoned over the heavens will of Kangling continent. Upon looking at this elderly figure before him, the Heavenly Emperor Yuan was stunned. He is the remaining 1/4 of the heavens will. Lin Fan explained. With that, the Heavenly Emperor Yuan frowned. If I were to return to him the rest of the heavens will, based on the ideals of the heavens will, he would forcefully tear through the heavenly barrier as well. Relax. He has already been tamed by me. He wouldn't do something like that. Lin Fan assured him. At this moment, Lin Fan was even more certain about the character of the Heavenly Emperor Yuan as well as his words. Based on the personality of the heavens will, who had complete disregard for human life, he would have definitely torn through the heavenly barriers set up by the Supreme Being. Knowing that the Heavenly Emperor Yuan was worried about this, Lin Fan heaved a sigh of relief. The longer one lived, the more lies one would tell. But evidently, the Heavenly Emperor Yuan didn't seem to be someone as such. With that, Lin Fan had a newfound respect for this man. Also, Lin Fan's mind could not help but wander over to the Seven Saints. Just where in the world had that fella gone to? Ever since he had found a new host, it was as though he had disappeared entirely from the rest of this world. But it didn't matter. That old dog shouldn't be able to trample upon anything great. Upon hearing the words of Lin Fan, everyone's face was dazed. To think that he could even tame the heavens will. What couldn't he tame? All right, the Heavenly Emperor Yuan nodded his head. In that instant, a bright glow appeared within his palms. This is the remainder of the heavens will. Lin Fan looked at that ball of light and nodded his head. Heavens will slowly absorb it in. Also, you're not allowed to destroy the heavenly barrier of this world. Understood. The elderly figure of the heavens will nodded his head. Holding the ball of light in his palms, he began to take it in. How much time do I have? Lin Fan asked. 1 day, the Heavenly Emperor Yuan replied. What, so little time? Lin Fan was stunned on hearing the reply. To think that yours truly would have to depart after a single day. Wasn't that way too fast? After a day, all of their consciousnesses are going to disintegrate. In order to breach a small gap through the heavenly barrier, we would need to make use of their consciousnesses. The Heavenly Emperor Yuan explained. N-O-V-E in .C Om. The 4 supreme beings looked at the Heavenly Emperor Yuan with a strange expression. Eventually, they sighed. Forget it, let's forget about everything before. Heavenly Emperor, it's been 10,000 years since we've last been together. Let us cherish this last day that we have and enjoy a good chat, shall we? The 4 supreme beings have come to a state of acceptance. They could understand where the Heavenly Emperor was coming from as well. They wanted to use these final moments to reminisce about everything they once had together. All right, looking at the 4 of them, the Heavenly Emperor Yuan nodded his head. Lin Fan sighed within his heart. He only had 1 day. How was that enough? Glory sect. Lin Fan arrived at Nameless Peak. Looking at everyone gathered around him, he could not help but feel a deep sense of melancholy within his heart. I knew it. Master is the best. Any sort of problems turn into no problems in the hands of our master. Zhang Ergo exclaimed while looking at Lin Fan with a look of respect. That goes without saying. Everyone has got to know whose master he is. Right, master. Kai Chao, that cute little brat, was hugging and sticking with Lin Fan tightly while boasting proudly. Lin Fan smiled as he fondled Kai Chao's little head. He then burst out into laughter brightly. All right, since I'm in a pretty good mood and all our Saint Devil Sect disciples are gathered, yours truly have got some good news to announce as the Grand Master of Saint Devil Sect. What good news? Zhan Yongxian looked at Lin Fan with an expression of happiness on her face. It's got something to do with you. Lin Fan said mysteriously. Huh, with me? Zhan Yongxian was startled for a moment before she grinned, curious about what was to come. Mie Chongqi stood silently on the sidelines. Looking at his master, his heart was filled with grief. He wondered when the next time would be when he could even see his master once more. But of course, he was tactful enough to let it show on his expression. Lin Fan held on to the tender hands of Zan Yongxian and continued, "It's been tough on you. After all, I've never ever given you a name or a status. Let us get married today, right here on Nameless Peak. All my disciples shall be my witnesses." Zan Yongxian looked at Lin Fan with a face of disbelief. She had not thought that it would be something like this. She then whispered, "What's wrong with you today? Why do you sound so different? It's an affair that has to be done sooner or later. Besides, if there's someone who comes after you, wouldn't that make you the big wife then?" Lin Fan chuckled teasingly. Upon hearing these words, Zan Yongxian's face flushed like a tomato. Tisk. "There are kids around." Lin Fan held onto Zan Yongxian's hands tightly and gently patted the back of her hand. "I've longed for a soulmate, and time shall never separate us. At times, fate is truly a strange thing indeed. Believe in me, I'll definitely protect all of you." Yes, Zan Yongxian had never once heard such words. With that, her gentle heart fluttered as she laid her head on Lin Fan's shoulder in complete bliss. "Oh, master's getting married." That little brat Kaiser Chow began hopping around excitedly. His second disciple, Yu Juling, beamed happily, while hopping around with Kaiser Chow as well. It was a simple affair without any guests nor grand stages. Everything was just plain and simple. But to Zan Yongxian, all she ever wanted was that simple sentence to account for her. A promise. Nightfall. That in-depth interaction between her and Lin Fan before his final departure had left her tired, and thus, she headed off into bed early. Lin Fan donned his robes. Looking at the sky and stars above, he disappeared from that place in the blink of an eye. The next moment, Lin Fan had arrived at Jushao sect. He found Xinfeng, whose hair were getting whiter, and was busy handling the affairs of the Jushao sect. Looking at the arrival of Lin Fan, Xinfeng was naturally overwhelmed with joy. Ever since he had known of Lin Fan's revival, he had been filled with emotions. That night, those two men conversed deeply. Xinfeng was so excited about seeing his brother once more that he did not notice anything strange about his brother Lin. As dawn broke out, Lin Fan left the Jushao sect. He then found his 14 sand bandits. These men had followed his absurdities of the Tao of robbery, and had insistently carried on his will. Looking at them, he could not help but sigh with a peaceful exasperation. He left a strain of his power, protecting and watching over these 14 fools. Lastly, Lin Fan headed back to the Kangling continent and conversed with those students of his. He imparted some skills over to them, and had them work hard on their own. This was not the way Lin Fan had planned his script to turn out. Towards this place, Lin Fan was filled with all sorts of reluctance. But what could he do about that? In order to take control of the fate from here on forth, he had to continue working hard by all means. This was a responsibility as well as a personal pursuit. Standing on a distant mountain peak, Lin Fan looked over the boundless mountains and seas of this world. For a moment, he had a strong feeling of unwillingness to leave this place surge into his heart. But he suppressed it within to the bottom of his heart. "Are you ready?" the Heavenly Emperor Yuan asked Lin Fan. "Yes, I'm done. You can begin now." Lin Fan took in a deep breath and nodded. He then looked over to a group of people. "Grand Master, please take care of Saint Devil sect from now on." Grand Master Yan looked at Lin Fan before heaving a long, deep sigh, nodding his head eventually. Boom! The four consciousnesses of the Supreme Beings exerted their final burst of strength. This burst of energy surged through the entire heavens and earth. Suddenly, Lin Fan's face turned pale. He noticed that even the Heavenly Emperor Yuan's life force was gradually turning weaker. "Heavenly Emperor Yuan, you!" Lin Fan exclaimed in disbelief. "Kid, you are the hope. And I have chosen to believe in this hope. Do not let me down." In that instant, the life force of the Heavenly Emperor Yuan erupted out as well. That massive amount of energy pierced through the heavens, as though it was paving a new path. The sacrifice of his life was the so-called hope of the Heavenly Emperor Yuan. Towards this decision, he did have some regrets before. But, he managed to let them go. After all, there was only a single hope. If he missed this opportunity, it might never come again. Lin Fan looked at the Heavenly Emperor Yuan and the four Supreme Beings before nodding his head. Just then, a small thin passageway appeared in the void. Even though it was minuscule, this passageway was practically the symbol of hope right now. Boom! In that instant, Lin Fan's body entered that passageway and disappeared entirely. The Heavenly Emperor Yuan's body turned into dust and scattered into the universe. As for the consciousnesses of the four supreme beings, they had reached the threshold of their limits, and had dissipated completely as well. Nameless Peak. A lone figure stood with a forlorn look on her face, glancing into the distant skies. I've longed for a soulmate, and time shall never separate us. I'll await your return, definitely. Chapter 445. A bunch of bewildered geniuses. Chapter 445. A bunch of bewildered geniuses. Just where is this place? Goodness, that passageway was seriously way too messed up. I was spinning so much, I'm totally nauseous right now. Lin Fan's stomach was churning like the seas right now, as though he could vomit out the entire Han River from his mouth at any instant. Sniff, sniff, this is the smell of air. And by the smell of it, it's pretty fresh. This must be the so-called upper world then. There's a sound beside my ear. Is there someone else here beside me? Within that pitch-black passageway, Lin Fan's vision was temporarily blinded. Therefore, he was struggling to regain vision facing this tremendous brightness upon leaving the passageway. A few figures were moving about before Lin Fan. Even though it was blurry, they looked similar to humans. However, the aura seemed a little off. Gradually, with a bit of time, Lin Fan's vision recovered. And you are? Upon catching sight of the figures before him, Lin Fan was astonished. They were extremely similar to human beings, yet they were somewhat different. A human with a single horn on his head. A human with 3 eyes. A human with wings behind his back. While all of them looked exactly the same as humans, there was a demonic aura within their auras. Just what sort of people were these? Lin Fan's heart was momentarily stunned, as he was bewildered. He surveyed his surroundings. He was in a dense patch of forest right now. Before him were some wild plains with valleys on both sides, leaving only a single path in between. Within the skies, there were 3 layers of raging flames. However, Lin Fan could not even feel a slight bit of heat from them. Fellow brother there, did you just ascend in? Just then, the single-horned man, who was completely nude, walked beside Lin Fan. Using his firm hands, he patted Lin Fan's shoulders and asked. That's right, and you are? Lin Fan was trying his best to soothe his heart. This was not the moment for him to lose face and act like a country bumpkin. He needed to remain calm. As for this single-horned nude man, his aura was dense. The aura within his body was rumbling as well. He was definitely a strong person. Even though his system of cultivation might be different, if Lin Fan were to gauge him using the cultivation system of Xuanwang world, this person should probably be a greater celestial full cultivation being. I am Zhao Niu from the Horn world. Greater celestial full cultivation state. Zhao Niu clasped his fist together and greeted with an upright stance. I am Lin Fan from Xuanwang world. Lin Fan was wary of his surroundings. In this unknown upper world, he had not let down his guard for even a single second. Lin Fan continued the conversation in bits and pieces. At the same time, he was trying to pull out some information from Zhao Niu's words to find out more about this world. But to Lin Fan's disappointment, Zhao Niu was just like him. He had 0 knowledge of this world. But there was something weird that he garnered from their conversation. The upper world that Zhao Niu had heard about was totally different from the one that Lin Fan was told of. Heaven on earth, the holy grounds of cultivation. This was the legend that was passed down to Zhao Niu from his world. This was the holy ground that everyone from his world was striving to arrive in. But the upper world that the heavenly Emperor Yuan and the 4 supreme beings had described was a treacherous place where it was survival of the fittest. What in the world was going on? Lin Fan looked around and gauged the number of people around him. There was roughly 100 or so of them. Each and every one of them was a greater celestial full cultivation being. At the same time, they weren't really old. The youngest amongst them should only be 17 or 18 years old while the oldest was only in their 30s. From what Lin Fan could tell, all of these people were the various geniuses of their very own worlds. Just then, there was a disturbance within the group of people. Someone was suggesting that they should leave this place. However, there was only a single path ahead of them, the path in between the valleys. Lin Fan wanted to stay here for a little while more and wait out things while he figured out just what the situation was like in this world. However, there was a mysterious force from the unknowns that was forcefully pushing him to leave this place. It was as if every single second they remained in this place would cause them to feel immense suffering and pains gradually. Why does it feel like it's getting harder to breathe? No, I've got to get out of here. The young man with a pair of wings said. I'm getting the same feeling. Another girl, who had a tail behind her, commented. She was extremely gorgeous and alluring. However, the color was gradually draining from her face. In that instant, everyone began to get out of the place. The moment Lin Fan stepped out of that patch of forest, that feeling disappeared immediately. Stepping his foot on the firm mud ground before him, a sense of reality gushed up into Lin Fan's heart. It was as though he had finally completed his transmigration into this world. But Lin Fan did not have the luxury to overthink things nor comprehend just what was going on in this world. All he could do was to follow the crowd. The upper world is beautiful indeed. The aura of this world feels much denser than the one back in mine. A young man remarked excitedly. Haha, this world was definitely prepared for me. Even that bottleneck from my world seems to have been loosened at this moment. Feeling a released form of energy surge through his body, yet another young youth burst out in happiness. All of these people here were greater celestial full cultivation beings. Hence, they were extremely sensitive to the energy of their surroundings. As for Lin Fan, he was already an utmost celestial full cultivation being right now. Therefore, he wasn't as sensitive to the surroundings as them. However, he could definitely feel the energy in the air around him being denser than that of the Xuanwang world. Just as everyone was walking on the path, a sudden ominous feeling burst out in Lin Fan's mind. Haha, not bad. Seems like there's quite a number of people who have ascended up this time around. Just then, a maniacal laughter boomed out from the void. By the time everyone could react to this, a gigantic cage that covered the entire sky had descended upon them, trapping everyone within it. What's going on? Who's there? All of these geniuses, who had just ascended into the upper world from all their multiverses and different worlds, were busy celebrating and feeling excited. But this sudden change of things had them in a panicked state. However, they had some talent to be able to reach their cultivation states, as their panicked hearts were only disordered for a split second before they managed to calm back down. Lin Fan's heart was thumping furiously though. Could it truly be the way Heavenly Emperor Yuan and the other supreme beings had mentioned? Was this so-called upper world truly a hell where everyone was doomed to suffer tragic trials and fates? Haha, just then, a bunch of figures appeared on the top of the valleys. Lin Fan focused his gaze over and frowned. These guys were ugly beyond measures. At the same time, they had a berserk aura that seemed to be filling the world around them. May I know who you guys are? We have just ascended into this place. If there's any way we've offended you guys, please pardon us. Zhao Niu was the first to step forth, clasping his fists together to apologize. Bam! Those bunch of people atop the valleys leapt down with tremendous force. Those violent eyes of theirs surveyed the masses in the cage as they smirked coldly. Lin Fan observed this bunch of ugly people. Their attires were the same, there must be someone leading them. And just then, a figure walked from behind this group of hideous-looking people. That figure was towering and pitch black, just like the Ancient One. However, his body was nowhere as strong as the Ancient One. All you bunch of fugly shish ts. You had better let go of me. Don't you know who I am? Just then, a man beside Lin Fan hollered out furiously. That's right, I am the genius of the fire world, the Great Flame Emperor. All of you fugly shish ts had better let go of us, or I shall have you guys suffer the terrible torment of being scorched. This red-haired man continued yelling. Within the fire world, he was the renowned Great Flame Emperor, who enjoyed the adoration of everyone else. To think that he would be captured by these fugly shish ts after entering this upper world. How could he tolerate that? With that, the masses began to clamor out loudly as well, evidently dissatisfied with this treatment. Standing at a corner, Lin Fan's heart was filled with shock instead. The reason for that was because he could see through the cultivation states of these hideous underlings. To think that each and every one of them was at the utmost celestial cultivation state. As for that leader right there, his cultivation state seemed to be even higher than utmost celestial. This bunch of fools around him were just courting death with their actions. N-O-V-E in .c ohm. Lin Fan could not help but sigh exasperatedly in his heart. What sort of a damned world was this? Why the hell did something like this happen the moment he came out? Heavenly Emperor Yuan, why hadn't you explained things clearly before? Lin Fan was thoroughly exasperated. Chapter 446, Ancient Race. Chapter 446, Ancient Race. Sir, we've captured a total of 98 ascended beings this time round. Not bad, not bad. Round it down then, I'll let you guys have the extra 8 to share amongst yourselves. A cruel glint shone from the eyes of the leader. The way he looked at Lin Fan and everyone else in the cage was as though he was looking at food. HMPH, what Great Flame Emperor and whatnot. How dare you act so brazen in front of me? I'll eat you up first then. The leader snorted coldly. As his pitch-black hand stretched out gradually, the entire void rippled. How come I'm unable to move? Let me go, let me go. The Great Flame Emperor, who was still hollering earlier on, was struggling right now. That so-called strongest flames of his were burning on the body of that leader. However, there was no impact on him at all. As the arm of the leader reached out, the Great Flame Emperor, who was trapped within the cage, was lifted by his neck like a chicken. I am the Great Flame Emperor. You fugly sh*t. Hurry up and let go of me. The eyes of the Great Flame Emperor were filled with fear right now. To think that those powers he was so proud of were absolutely useless in this situation. Haha, genius of the fire world. Not bad, not bad. You must definitely taste delicious. The leader of the pack looked at the Great Flame Emperor and smirked coldly. Opening his mouth widely, he chomped down on the body of the Great Flame Emperor. Arg! A tragic cry rang out from the Great Flame Emperor. With his feet dangling above the ground, he repeatedly struggled to get out of the grasp that arm. But gradually, his aura grew feebler by the second as that burning body of his began to wither non-stop. Eventually, he turned into a dried-up corpse and was tossed aside by the leader. That's a really pure taste. Succulent and smooth aftertaste. The leader stuck out his tongue lustfully and smacked his lips. It was as though he had just enjoyed a scrumptious feast. With that, every single genius who had ascended was left absolutely dumbfounded. They had not expected such a situation to unfold. N-O-V-E in .c ohm. Each and every one of them had witnessed the strength of that Great Flame Emperor earlier on. Even they themselves might not have been a match for him. But to think that he was gripped in the palms of this hideous creature with such ease and then devoured in a single bite. That was the epitome of terror. Lin Fan felt his heart jerk for a moment as well. This was even more horrifying than what the Heavenly Emperor Yuan had described. There was absolutely no chance of survival at all. Even if one were to play a game, there ought to be a safe point or safe zone for preparation. However, ever since they entered this upper world, there was no such place at all. They were doomed the moment they entered this place. Arg! Just then, all sorts of tragic cries rang out from all directions. Yet another 7 people had been dragged out by those hideous and ugly creatures. The 7 of them tried running away, yet, there was no escape for them. Each and every one of these people here were geniuses and overlords of their respective worlds. To think that they would be toyed around like helpless lab rats right now. Looking at the everything, Lin Fan could only shake his head helplessly. At this moment, Lin Fan truly wanted to help them out. But he couldn't do anything. The number of energy grid line chains that Lin Fan had gathered by now was already 500. He actually had zero regards for these feeble utmost celestial ants. In fact, even that leader, who had broken through beyond the utmost celestial state, wasn't someone that could faze Lin Fan at all. But herein lied the problem. If even all of these small little ants were utmost celestial, what would happen to him if he struck out and there was an even greater being that was camping nearby? Wouldn't he be doomed? This is no heaven on earth. This is just hell. Tricked. I was tricked. Out of those 7 people who were dragged out, a young youth with wings reared his head into the skies and vented out his frustration. But those were his final words. He had come to his place bearing expectations and hopes, only to find out that everything was different from what he had expected. All you be ****ts. Let us out. Even if we must die, we'll fight you to our deaths. The other 90 overlord-level people who were trapped within the cages held out. They could no longer bear to watch this scene any longer. They used all sorts of powerful skills and tactics to strike at the cage that was cooping them in. However, it was useless. There wasn't even a single scratch on the cage. Ants, don't waste your strength anymore. The rules here are different from your worlds. Now that you're here, you can barely even exert 10% of your strength. You must be daydreaming if you think that you can break out of this cage. The leader laughed coldly as his eyes glinted in mockery, as though he was toying with them. Don't come over. Amongst the 7 that were selected, there was a single female who had a tail behind her. The moment she caught sight of one of those ugly creatures approaching her, she let out a high-pitched scream. She was a female empress back in her world, mighty and tall over the rest of the world. However, in front of this hideous creature, she had lost every single bit of image and was terrified. Haha, what a beautiful body you've got. It's been a long time since I've had such a tender body. That hideous creature's eyes shone with lust as he glared at that woman. It was as though he was having some really dirty thoughts in his head. Lin Fan gripped his fist tightly as a flame of rage was burning within him. Upon hearing the words of the leader, Lin Fan suddenly realized that even his own powers were restrained by this world. Indeed, it was as he had mentioned. He couldn't even use up 10% of his original strength. This Brazen. Suddenly, a massive amount of energy burst out from the distant skies above. Lin Fan squinted his eyes and looked over into the distance. His face turned gleeful. There were people approaching. Pierced by a single ray of light, that hideous creature who had dirty thoughts about that female died immediately. Who's there? Realizing that something was off, the leader's face changed. Ancient race, you guys are going overboard. All of you shall die here today. Within the skies, tens of people appeared suddenly. Glaring at these ugly creatures with a furious look in their eyes, they proceeded to massacre these creatures. Ancient race. Lin Fan carved this name into his heart. Could these hideous creatures be that ancient race? The heavenly Emperor Yuan did mention that the Ancient One was one of the 8 utmost beings of this upper world. Evidently, he must have some relation with this ancient race as well. A massacre was what happened. Out of those tens of people, none of them were humans. All of them were from different worlds. Furthermore, Lin Fan could tell that these people possessed immense strength. His cultivation state was sealed by this place right now, and he couldn't even exert 10% of his original strength. But upon looking at these people, Lin Fan understood. There must be some sort of way to bypass this. Otherwise, there was no way these people could be this strong. In the blink of an eye, the leader of those from the ancient race was killed by these people. At the same time, the cage that had shackled Lin Fan and everyone else within was broken apart by these people. This is a dangerous place. We shouldn't linger around. Follow us. Those tens of people swept their robes and brought everyone to escape with them. By the time Lin Fan and everyone else opened their eyes, the scenery had changed entirely. There was no sky above them, nor was there the green earth before them. It seemed as though they were in some sort of cave or something. This cave was extremely huge, and was lit up by flames on the sides of the walls. All of those geniuses that had ascended from the different worlds heaved out a sigh of relief. At the same time, they were filled with bewilderment. Just what in the world was going on? Those hideous creatures, what were they? Checking out his surroundings, Lin Fan also heaved out a sigh of relief. Seemed like they were safe for now. Although, he wondered how long this serenity and safety net would last. Lin Fan's priority, after all of this was settled, was to raise his power level immediately. Anything else meant nothing at all. Chapter 447, The Strongest System, Initiate. Chapter 447, The Strongest System, Initiate. All of the rescued people were discussing fervently about this foreign world. They were totally lost and confused. However, right now, a new hope laid before their very eyes. That hope was these people who had saved them. More than 90 people, each of them geniuses of their very own worlds. Even though they were all pretty confused, they heaved a sigh of relief when they witnessed the strength produced by these dozens of saviors. This was proof that they could get stronger here. Silence. At that moment, a man with a single horn walked out of the darkness. His commanding voice filled the entire cave. With a repressing aura pressing down on everyone through that voice alone, everyone's faces changed as they struggled to resist that aura. Lin Fan frowned. This man's strength was definitely much stronger than his own. Even at his peak power, he might not be a match for this person here. But, this was nothing shocking for Lin Fan as well. This so-called upper world should mean that this was a world above their own. Even though Lin Fan was an invincible force back in Xuanwang world, he was already prepared for the fact that he might only be the weakest in this world. Right now, his mind was only filled with questions and doubts, and nothing else. After all, to Lin Fan, becoming strong was something extremely simple. All he required was effort. He had no doubt that before long, he would definitely be stronger than anyone else here. Do not speak or ask anything. Everything shall be explained to you guys in due time. Now, when I start calling out the worlds, anyone who has ascended from those worlds shall come forth and receive a teleportation rock from me. Horn World. Zhao Niu patted Lin Fan on the shoulders before heading up front. Looking at Zhao Niu, that lone-horned man nodded his head. He then handed over a sparkling jade crystal into the hands of Zhao Niu. This is a teleportation rock. Drip your blood on it, and it will send you over to the area where people of the Horn World are residing in. Someone there will update you on the situation here. Fox World. The girl who was nearly ravished earlier by that soldier of the ancient race stood out. Even though her face was still slightly pale, she had mostly recovered from the shock from earlier. Thank you, senior. After that, with the help of the teleportation rocks, all of the people left the cave, all except Lin Fan, who was the only one standing there looking bewildered. What the hell? What about me? Lin Fan asked hurriedly. The lone-horned man looked at Lin Fan as his brows creased. It was as though he was trying to recall something but he couldn't no matter how hard he tried. Which world are you from again? Xuanwang world, human race. Lin Fan replied hurriedly. Xuanwang world, human race. The man was stunned, as though he was trying to remember something. But he shook his head. There isn't anything for Xuanwang world. How could there be no Xuanwang world? You must have forgotten, haven't you? There are tons of humans from Xuanwang world over here. Lin Fan was getting worked up right now. Were they going to dump yours truly here alone? He was totally foreign to this place. If he were to head out right now and bump into those from the ancient race again, what was he supposed to do? And even if there truly wasn't a place, they ought to give him some advice, shouldn't they? At the same time, letting him know how he should settle the situation he was in right now should be their duty or something. Goodness Christ, this sh*t about getting his cultivation state suppressed was no joke at all, man. If he could find a way to break out from these shackles of the world, he might still have a shot at survival. The human race has long fallen. Because of that, naturally, there is no longer a sanctuary for you humankind. Just then, another figure appeared before Lin Fan. Lin Fan was entirely exasperated. He wanted to cuss out at them. But on second thought, he let go of that idea. This must be the doing of those four supreme beings, sealing the ascension of humans from the Xuanwang world. In the past 10,000 plus years, there hadn't been a single humankind who had ascended to this upper world. Those humans who were living here previously must have known some sort of secret or something, and thus, they have stopped trying to receive anyone ascending from Xuanwang world. For a race as strong as the humans, there must definitely be no issue for them to reproduce and sustain their race here. And in fact, if someone like him were to make his way over there right now, he might be a black sheep for them. Seems like I can't help you with that. However, you're the only person I've seen who has ascended over from the Xuanwang world in all these years. I'm sure everything you want to know is within here. Your life and death from now forth depends on you yourself. With that man tossed a booklet over to Lin Fan. With a bright flash, he left the place with a teleportation rock as well. N-O-V-E in .c ohm. Oi, I'm not done talking. Lin Fan tried calling after the person. But it was too late. All of these damned people had left. Lin Fan was the only person left standing blankly in that entire empty cave. Holy FCK, all you sh*t stains have no single bit of love or empathy within you. Lin Fan sighed before plopping down on his bum. Looking at this sealed cave, he could only sigh deeply. Where was the path from here on forth? No, there's definitely no way I can just wait for death right here. I've got to pick myself up and take out that mighty disposition I had in the Xuanwang world. So what if this place is fraught with dangers? Yours truly shall use these iron fists of his to break a brand new world in this place. All of those people shall regret not befriending yours truly earlier. Lin Fan was cheering himself up inside his heart while laying down this grand promise at the same time. But, everything's got to have a start. Let's see what's inside this booklet. Hopefully, it answers everything that I need to know. Lin Fan sighed once more. While he still had no idea about anything in the outside world, he should just obediently read through and understand the circumstances here. This booklet looked a little aged, and even tattered at the sides. Each and every single one of those words was handwritten. In that silent cave, the only sound was of Lin Fan flipping the pages. Time passed by the second and the minutes. Lin Fan did not even know how many days had passed. By the time he had finished reading the booklet, he had an urge to commit suicide. He was really FCKED this time around. The name of this upper world was called Ancient Saint World. As for those creatures from the ancient race, they were the indigenous people of this world. Vile, cruel and ruthless, they viewed everything other than their own race as food. In fact, the dangers recorded within the booklet were not the ancient race alone. There was a multitude of other ferocious, ancient beasts within this world. These beasts were described to be extremely strong, so ferocious that they couldn't possibly be dealt with by ordinary folks. With that, Lin Fan started to get a slight understanding. At the same time, the booklet had described some random things to be taken note of. However, nothing was complete, and so, Lin Fan still had to depend on himself to discover everything else. But the most pressing issue on Lin Fan's mind right now was how he should assimilate into this world so that he wouldn't be repressed any longer. From the booklet, Lin Fan understood one thing. Among the many thousands of worlds out there, each of them had a different system of cultivation. The heavens will that existed in these worlds were different as well. While the form of power that was harnessed in the Xuanwang world was energy grid line chains, it wasn't the same for the other worlds out there. In this ancient saint world, for example, the power that was harnessed through cultivation was not energy grid line chains, but some sort of weird thing called saint spirit chi. Sigh, forget it, let's take things one step at a time. Time to just convert these energy grid line chains first. Lin Fan shook his head as he couldn't do anything else but accept the reality before him. Ding, too damned bloody troublesome. Initiating the strongest module. Begin assimilation. Ding, assimilation success. Ding, energy grid line chains conversion success. Ding, experience points numerical value exceeded. Rebooting calibration. Ding, calibration successful, strongest module assimilated. Ding, your system is still the goddamn strongest system. All you need to do is to slay sh*t to get experience points and level up. It is no longer a dream to head up the path to greatness and attain a lifetime of absolute dominance. Lin Fan was leaping with joy in his heart right now. To think that the system would suddenly just decide to solve every single last problem for him right now. Seemed like the system was not failing earlier on. It was just in a state of assimilation. And by the looks of it, it had successfully done so. Seemed like it was time to check out what was up with the system right now. Just what kind of playing field did this strongest module have to offer? Seemed like even the system itself could not stand all this cumbersome and bothersome nonsense and decided to go berserk on its own. Ha! Chapter 448, Cleaving Down Everything. Chapter 448, Cleaving Down Everything. Name, Lin Fan, Cultivation State, Utmost Celestial Full Cultivation State. Experience Points, 0 10,000ths. Physical Body State, Imperishable Full Cultivation State. Fused with Energy Grid Line Chains. Physical Body Experience Points, 7,000 10,000ths. Potential, Unlimited, Bloodline, Upper Firmament Bloodline unactivated. Looking at the panel of his personal information on the system, Lin Fan's lips curled into a bitter smile. Even though his physical body state had improved from imperishable lower level to imperishable full cultivation state, it was only a farce. While it might look stronger on the surface, he had actually gone down in terms of toughness. Bloody hell, system, were you suppressed by the rules of this world that made you so submissive as well? What sort of strongest module is this? This is a complete acknowledgement of defeat. Lin Fan was almost on the brink of tears right now. To think that he had believed in the words of this system. He was so thoroughly FCKED up to his granny's house right now. Ding, congratulations on fusing one energy grid line chain of Xuanwang world into your physical body. Ding, physical body experience points plus 100. Holy sh*t. Lin Fan's face changed as the energy grid line chain he had gathered fused within his body. Didn't this mean that he could level up automatically without being walloped? Lin Fan immediately pulled back the screen of his profile and took a closer look. The speed in which he gathered energy grid line chains was still as fast as ever. He was only 3,000 experience points away from leveling his physical body state once more. Given this current rate, that means that he would only require around 30 energy grid line chains. He would be able to level by a month's time. Not bad, not bad. Upon hearing that notification, Lin Fan's lips grinned once more. This was practically double insurance. To think that he could level up even without being whacked. This meant that given enough time, even his physical body state would grow to be unlimitedly strong. In fact, invincibility might not be out of the question as well. Haha, with that, Lin Fan burst out laughing. However, when he looked at how the billions of experience points required initially had now shrunk down to mere tens of thousands, he was a little not used to it. But, this was for the best as well. After all, this made things simpler to look at. The lower amount of experience points required should serve as motivation as well. At this moment, it was as though Lin Fan had regained his vitality. Those rules of the ancient saint world which were restricting him previously seemed to have disappeared as well. Once again, he could feel the massive surge of his own powers returning to him. Looking at his surroundings, Lin Fan beamed brightly once more. Seems like it's time to take a tour outside and chop down everything in this world. Upon knowing that he would have to ascend up here, Lin Fan had left Chicky behind in Xuanwang world, because he did not know how things would be like up here. If he were to meet with a strong opponent and fall here, that would be an absolute tragedy. From the booklet, Lin Fan also found out about the cultivation states of this world and their increasing levels. Utmost Celestial, Earth Celestial, Azure Celestial, Desolate Celestial, Divine Celestial, but even then, Lin Fan knew that Divine Celestial wasn't the end point of it all. That was because the Supreme Being and the others were divine celestials as well, yet they were whooped like dogs by the Ancient One. Therefore, Lin Fan had to set his expectations straight, and keep a low profile. Lin Fan had no idea exactly how long he had spent within the cave. But right now, he was prepared to head out there and give it a good massacre. He had to grow stronger. The moment Lin Fan stepped out of the cave and faced the bright, clear skies was a moment of strong battle intent. Growl. As Lin Fan stepped out of the cave and re-entered the forest, the sounds of the surrounding beasts increased in frequency. And just as he was warily surveying his surroundings, a massive object leapt down from the skies. This dark figure was so huge that it covered everything above Lin Fan's head. Lin Fan's face changed slightly as he shifted his body quickly, sidestepping to avoid being crushed by the massive creature. Looking at the being before him, Lin Fan could not help but take in a breath of cold air. What a mighty giant ape! Gra! That single-eyed giant ape howled into the skies. Using both arms, he repeatedly thumped on his chest, giving off dull thudding sounds. That soul-red-colored swollen eye was filled with malice, as he glared straight at Lin Fan and roared. Ancient beast. Cyclops giant ape. Utmost celestial full cultivation. Lin Fan's eyes squinted. All it took was a single look for all of this data to appear. This caused Lin Fan to be a little surprised. Could this be the improved framework as a result of the system going berserk? Without even using his intent, he could observe and gauge everything automatically. With that, Lin Fan took out the legendary weapon, Eternal Axe. Big chimp, come at me, Lin Fan taunted the giant ape and beckoned with his palm. Gra! The Cyclops giant ape howled madly as he punched his chest repeatedly with the gigantic arms of his. It was as though he was infuriated by this puny little ant jeering towards him. Just then, the Cyclops giant ape lunged at Lin Fan with a fist of tremendous force. It was as though he was bent on killing Lin Fan. Hey, seems like you shall be the first beast yours truly kills after coming to this world. Wielding the Eternal Axe, Lin Fan slammed down at the fist of the Cyclops giant ape. Plop! In that instant, the air was filled with a mess of meat and blood. That massive fist that the Cyclops giant ape sent out was split into two by Lin Fan. N-O-V-E in .c ohm. That mighty body retreated backward instantly. Within those malicious eyes shone a shimmer of fear. He then turned around and tried to run instantly. Hey, you think you can run after taunting yours truly? What a dream! Lin Fan looked at the Cyclops giant ape, took aim, and tossed out the Eternal Axe. The Eternal Axe spun in the air as it sliced upwards from below, ripping the Cyclops giant ape apart from his anus. Ugh! Fresh, steaming blood sprayed into the skies and stained the ground all around it. Ding! Congratulations on killing Cyclops giant ape. Ding! Experience points plus 100. ... Lin Fan came before the body of the giant ape. Looking at the mess of blood on the ground right now, he grinned, "Little one, you think you can be insolent?" Just as Lin Fan was about to leave, a notification startled Lin Fan. Ding! Discovered demonic aura of Cyclops giant ape. Absorb it within Demon City. This was a new phenomenon. Could this be a new effect after the system's berserk as well? Absorb. Lin Fan did not know what it meant, but he just wanted to see what would come out of it. In that instant, Lin Fan witnessed a green puff of demonic aura emanating out from the corpse of the Cyclops giant ape. It was then absorbed by the system into his demon city within his storage. Lin Fan suddenly realized that something was happening to that semi-finished, pseudo-legendary weapon, Demon City. To think that this demonic aura could repair the Demon City. Could it be that these were just the things to allow the Demon City to evolve into a proper legendary weapon? At the thought of this, Lin Fan was overwhelmed with joy. Cyclops giant ape, don't blame yours truly. Yours truly is a man who's starting from scratch right now. I had intended to leave your corpse there entirely. But seems like I can't do that any longer. Lin Fan looked at both halves of the body that he had just cleaved. Waving his hand, he then tossed it into the heaven and earth smelt and began smelting. Ding! Congratulations on smelting. Ding! Congratulations on obtaining Cyclops giant ape's essence blood. 10 drops. Not bad. Seems like this place is quite the treasure trove. Apparently, there's no hurry to leave. I should totally look for more ancient beasts. Lin Fan rubbed his chin and decided on his next course of action. Chapter 449. A mythical pill which would anger both humans and gods. Chapter 449. A mythical pill which would anger both humans and gods. In the guise of the darkness of the night, a pair of shimmering bright eyes darted around the forest. The nights in the ancient saint world were way scarier than those back in Donling continent, with the howling of beasts running rampant throughout the night. Lin Fan did not know where he was or the type of powerful forces that he was being surrounded by. However, with the way his power level was right now, Lin Fan felt that he still better be careful about things. After all, his cultivation state was practically the lowest in the ancient saint world right now. Even if anyone else could tolerate this, this was absolutely intolerable for Lin Fan. The next level up after utmost celestial was Earth Celestial. No matter what, he had to hurry and make his way up there to be an Earth Celestial. Lin Fan was standing on top of an ancient tree at this moment, preparing to take a short break. However, a sudden rumble from the distance managed to catch his attention. That was the sound of an ancient beast. Furthermore, by the sounds of it, it seems like there was a fight going on right now. Lin Fan's heart was suddenly filled with hope. As the saying went, the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind it. Lin Fan wanted to be that oriole. To the current Lin Fan, any small fish in this world right now was like a gigantic whale of experience points for him to boost his power level. The Lin Fan who had gradually gotten lazier over time was finally starting to regain his initial diligence. Entering stealth mode, Lin Fan shiftily made his way over to the commotion. The beasts in this world were exceptionally sensitive towards one's aura. Since Lin Fan's aura was hidden by the system, he couldn't be sensed by these creatures. However, one still had to take extra precautions nevertheless. The closer Lin Fan approached, the louder the commotion got. But this only served to make Lin Fan ever happier. By the sounds of it, both sides seemed to be pretty formidable. Could it be two high-leveled beasts duking it out? That thought alone had Lin Fan's heart blossoming with flowers like spring. This was indeed the sort of reaping that Lin Fan loved to come across the most. Hiding on a big old tree, Lin Fan looked down at the scene below. But instead, what he saw nearly had him puking out blood. A beast was riding on top of another beast, humping down rapidly. And that commotion from earlier. Naturally, it was caused by these two. To think that these two beasts would be conducting such indecent acts under the brilliant night skies. Highs. Lin Fan gave off a long, exasperated sigh. Ancient beast. Vixen beast. Utmost celestial full cultivation. Ancient beast. Blue-eyed white wolf. Utmost celestial full cultivation. ... Forget it, two utmost celestial full cultivation beasts are better than nothing. Time to reap them up. Even though Lin Fan was a little disappointed, he took it in his stride. Even if this weren't the perfect scenario he had visualized, so what? Just as Lin Fan was about to take action, he stopped and let down his hands. Highs, no matter what, I feel a little guilty for killing you two while you're experiencing such great pleasure. Guess I'll just wait for you guys to have your fill of pleasure before I chop you guys down. Lin Fan thought in his head and just waited. After all, he was a compassionate man. At that moment, the blue-eye white wolf was grabbing the butt cheeks of the vixen beast with his claws. He gave off a wild howl as his entire body shivered, like he was firing off billions of bullets into the enemy fortress. Rawr! The vixen beast howled. Within those eyes was an evident look of displeasure, as she used her hind legs to kick the blue-eye white wolf away. The blue-eye white wolf didn't get worked up over this kick. In fact, he was closing his eyes blissfully, as though he was reminiscing over that wonderful sensation. After that, he got up and left slowly. Lin Fan did not know what was happening. But just as he was about to take action, his face changed once more. He could sense another ancient beast approaching from the distance. Boom, boom, the stomping of the ground with the wild run was getting closer, as yet another four-legged ancient beast made its way over. Ancient beast. Azure Ghoul Tiger. Earth Celestial lower level. To think that it's an Earth Celestial beast. Looking at this tiger whose entirely body was gleaming with an eerie glow, Lin Fan grinned. He had walked through the entire area during the daytime, but he had yet to bump into an Earth Celestial beast. To think that he would meet one here. Now, this was worth waiting for. Could it be that he had selected the wrong location to camp at, and thus he did not meet with any Earth Celestial beasts during the day? Seemed like after he was done reaping these things, he would need to test things out further. Just then, yet another shocking scene happened. This Azure Ghoul Tiger wasn't the same type of beast as the Vixen beast. However, just like the blue-eye white wolf, it leapt up and began humping that same portion of the Vixen beast's body. Lin Fan's jaws fell as he gaped at the scene below with a look of disbelief. Just what in the world is going on right now? Could there be the idea of bestiality even amongst beasts themselves? Lin Fan felt his own perception of life being refreshed entirely. This scene of discovery was filling Lin Fan with curiosity. Under the clear night skies, Lin Fan was like a peeping Tom. Silently hiding in the trees, he engaged in voyeurism the entire night. As time passed, Lin Fan finally understood what in the world was happening. At the same time, the feeling of elation within his heart only grew deeper. He had found a new method to slay these beasts. Even though he did not know what sort of a beast this vixen beast was, he knew that she had a special skill that could attract all the surrounding male beasts in the vicinity to head forth and bang her. Even while these ancient beasts came and left happily, Lin Fan could tell the difference in the auras of these male beasts. It was as though some of their aura had been infused within the body of the vixen beast. Seemed like this vixen beast was using their yang to replenish her yin. Each time a male beast left, the vixen beast would stand there and howl once more. That single howl seemed to be the call of attraction for the nearby male beasts. Entering stealth mode, Lin Fan made his way slowly towards the vixen beast. The 9-5 legendary brick was ready in his hands. He must definitely get his hands on this vixen beast. The rise of yours truly depended on this beast right here. The moment Lin Fan revealed himself, he was discovered by the vixen beast as she gave off a furious roar. Lie down, B*TCH. Bam! With a single knock of the 9-5 legendary brick, she laid down obediently. But just at that moment, Lin Fan heard some noises from the nearby forest. Keeping the vixen beast in his storage, he snuck up the big tree once more. Just as Lin Fan hid himself in the tree, a stimulated male beast was rushing over here happily. However, upon the sight of the empty clearing, the beast was filled with a deep look of disappointment. The beast surveyed his surroundings and growled out a few times. However, upon receiving zero replies, it left this place dejected as ever. Phew, that was close. I was nearly discovered. Lin Fan patted his chest as he heaved in relief, beaming brilliantly. He had only one thought on his mind right now. He had to start utilizing the special traits of this vixen beast. Lin Fan rubbed his chin and lowered his head, deep in thought. Suddenly, his face blushed. No, I can't do that. That's really too evil. But this is the only chance to do so. Besides, no one else will know. It's definitely going to work out. I am the mighty 6th Grand Master of Saint Devil Sect. How can I do such a beastly thing? Forget it. If I'm a beast, so be it. No one will know anyways. At that moment, Lin Fan opened his storage and started searching for some suitable medicinal herbs. He was ready to create it. The most devious and evil pill in this world. A pill which would cause the gods to feel wrath. A pill which would cause all humans to feel ashamed. A mythical pill. Chapter 450. This is poisonous. Chapter 450. This is poisonous. With Lin Fan's current standards of cultivating pills, he was extremely familiar with the effects of things like Zonyang grass, intense yang grass, and their combined outcomes. Therefore, there was no pill that Lin Fan could not create. The only limit was that of his imagination. With pills through thought, a single mythical flame burned on Lin Fan's palms. He then tossed the medicinal herbs within and began cultivating. N-O-V-E in .C Ohm. Within that mythical flame, the herbs began to melt and fuse into a single liquid. They then began to regroup continuously, giving off the aroma of pills. This scent was fragrant. Just the aroma of it alone could let one tell that this was a superb pill for sure. However, Lin Fan was the only one who truly knew what sort of a pill this was. Ding, congratulations on cultivating mysterious pill. Please name it. Lin Fan rubbed his chin and rolled his eyelids. What should he call it? Naming pills was a difficult task, that required deep knowledge and creative insight. The name itself could display the wisdom of its creator. However, it had to relate to the effects of the pill well. Alright then, it's decided. FCK of poison. Ding, congratulations on naming success. He. Lin Fan sniggered, as he retrieved the vixen beast from his storage. Right now, the vixen beast was unconscious, thanks to the wondrous effects of Lin Fan's 9-5 legendary brick. Lin Fan pinched the pill, which burst into a cloud of powder in an instant. This powder landed on the butt of the vixen beast. Once everything was done, Lin Fan placed the vixen beast back where she was, and headed back up to the tree alone, camping in his stealth mode, biding his time. 1 minute later, roar, the vixen beast jerked up suddenly. Those eyes were filled with caution as she gazed at her surroundings warily. However, she was confused to find no one else in her vicinity. The vixen beast then raised her head and turned around, checking if there were any wounds or damage to her body. There was nothing. Eventually, she tossed her head in bewilderment as she could not understand what had just happened. Anything these beasts couldn't figure out would be just left to be. There was no point racking their brains over things like that. Rawr, The vixen beast howled up into the skies. This single howl permeated through the night skies. Lin Fan watched the scene with bated breath and extreme anticipation. He couldn't wait to tell if his drug had succeeded. If it did, then this was going to be damn awesome, hee hee. Stomp, stomp. Just then, the racing sounds of a beast stamping on the ground from a distance rang through. Lin Fan's face tightened. This ancient beast was the first tester for him to find out if his pill would take this beast down. Lin Fan turned over to look at the approaching beast. Immediately, he couldn't hide his momentary disappointment. To think that this was just an utmost celestial middle-level beast. What a letdown. But it didn't matter. No matter what cultivation state this beast was, the most important thing right now was to find out if the pill had succeeded. Upon catching sight of that vixen beast under the beautiful moonlight, the approaching beast pounced over in happiness. Sniffing the aura on the vixen beast up and down, he let out a drunken look of intoxication. The vixen beast looked over at this new beast and snorted a few times. She was evidently looking down on this beast in disdain. If Lin Fan could understand the speech of beasts, he would definitely have his mind blown apart right now. Your cultivation state is so low. Get the hell lost. One time, please, just let me do you one time. Please, pretty please. The beast howled pitifully a few times as he circled around the vixen beast, begging her for mercy. The vixen beast then gave off a low gruntle, as though she had decided to take pity and agree with it. Filled with happiness, the male beast leapt into the air. He then leaned on the body of the vixen beast with excitement in his eyes. Lin Fan observed the entire show without losing focus, all the while muttering, "Go down, go down, go down." This male beast was humping happily and excitedly when it suddenly stopped all motion. It retreated slowly on all four legs, its motion unsteady. The vixen beast frowned and turned around to look at this male beast. Displeasure was written all over her face. The eyes of the male beast were filled with disbelief, as his head started spinning into a daze. Boom! Suddenly, the male beast collapsed onto the ground. The only last words on his mind were, "This FCK is poisonous." ... It worked. Lin Fan held his hands together excitedly. It had worked. Yes, now was the time to patiently await the arrival of more beasts. This pill's effect could last for a long time. He could definitely knock out more beasts with this. Looking at this male beast that was laying on the ground, the vixen beast roared at it repeatedly. She then gave this beast a good, strong kick. It was her way of expressing, "How dare you come so hard on me when you don't even have any bit of stamina? What a waste of time." The vixen beast cast a look of contempt at this beast that was motionless on the ground. She then reared her head up and howled out once more. Not long after, yet another beast had arrived for a new round. This beast was an Earth Celestial lower-level beast. Lin Fan was pleased with this, as he nodded his head repeatedly in acknowledgement. The male beast came before the vixen beast. Looking at that collapsed beast on the ground, he began to sniff around suspiciously. Yet, he couldn't find anything amiss about this situation. The vixen beast growled to the male beast, as though they were conversing. And just as Lin Fan expected, this male beast rose up to the occasion. But not long after, this male beast gave off yet another cry. His body wavered as he collapsed to the ground with a loud thud as well. The final thoughts of this male beast were the same as the guy before him, "This FCK is poisonous." Hiding on the tree, Lin Fan, who was observing this scene, was overfilled with glee in his heart. 2 beasts down. This was a strong pill indeed. But he wondered how strong this pill could get. What was the limit of beast cultivation that it could knock out? Lin Fan lowered his head in contemplation. He could give this a shot. After that, he disappeared from his position above the trees as he headed out to look for more beasts. In the night time, many beasts were out, roaming actively. However, all of these ancient beasts had cultivation states that were too low for Lin Fan's likings. Given his current circumstances, he needed to make good use of this opportunity. There's a boss. Lin Fan could feel a formidable aura appearing in the distance. Under the guise of the moonlight, he shifted swiftly as he made his way over and soon arrived at the territory of this aura. Ancient beast. Single-arm berserk ape. Earth Celestial full cultivation. Right in front of Lin Fan was a colossal ape who was resting in his own hideout, shutting his eyes and napping. Just a single look at that massive body was enough to send shivers down one's spine. If Lin Fan had to deal with this beast head-on, he was sure that he wasn't a match, and might end up even losing his life to it. The vixen beast's howl was piercing in this silent night. However, it couldn't attract this single-arm berserk ape in the least bit. Lin Fan thought for a moment. Suddenly, he sniggered. "It's okay if you're not interested. I'll make you interested. The rise of yours truly depends on you. He. At that moment, Lin Fan took out a bunch of bigras. He had the utmost confidence in his magnificent bigras and their effects. Lin Fan tossed the bunch of bigras over to the single-arm berserk ape. Deep in his sleep, the single-arm berserk ape suddenly jerked awake. He had sensed an intruder. Burst. Suddenly, all the bigras burst into a tuft of smoke, encompassing the single-arm berserk ape within. With a single breath, the single-arm berserk ape breathed in all of the mist into its tummy. Suddenly, that initially calm and reserved single-arm berserk ape literally went berserk as his eyes shone with madness. His towering figure stood tall under the night skies. It was especially so for that gigantic object between his crotch that had gone berserk. Once more, the cries of the vixen beast rang over. This time around, the eyes of the single-arm berserk ape shone brightly in excitement. It was as though he had finally discovered something. With a single leap, he burst over in the direction of the howl. Ha, yours truly is a genius indeed. Looking at that figure running off, Lin Fan could not help but snigger. But just then, something suddenly struck Lin Fan. This single-arm berserk ape's body was so huge. Could the vixen beast withstand him? Holy sh*t. At the thought of this, Lin Fan suddenly had an ominous feeling as he darted over. This vixen beast was his legendary weapon for seducing beasts. Holy sh*t. Things would be bad if she was ravaged and toyed to death by that single-arm berserk ape. Chapter 451. Ill slay, and ill slay, and ill slay, and. Chapter 451. I'll slay, and I'll slay, and I'll slay, and. Right now, the vixen beast was feeling extremely bewildered. Looking at the beasts that were lying on the ground one by one, she was extremely confused. Just what in the world was up with these guys? Why were all of them, beasts? Each and every one of these beasts collapsed after a few mere seconds. None of them had any stamina at all. She hadn't even sucked up any yang energy from them yet. Could it be because she was way too beautiful? Could they have all fainted over from her outrageous beauty? At this point, that was the only thought that the vixen beast could think of. Roar. At that moment, the roar of a wild beast rang over. Looking at that tender body of the vixen beast, this new male beast's eyes were filled with immense lust. Looking at the arrival of yet another beast, the vixen beast called out loudly. Her call was filled with the seductive tones that a beauty like her should have. Upon hearing this sweet melody, the male beast's body shuddered momentarily. He then leapt over in a frenzy. He was determined to take this woman under his control. Looking at how the large muscles of this beast compared to those from before, the vixen beast was excited beyond measure. This time, this beast should be able to sustain for a much longer duration. If she did not collect enough yang essence, her master would definitely get angry at her. The beast came before the vixen beast and sniffed around gently. He then stuck out his tongue and twirled it around with carnage lust, expressing the excitement in his heart. And just as this beast was about to press down the vixen beast under his control, another wild howl boomed out from the distant forest. The trees toppled down as the stomping from the footsteps got even closer. Boom! A gargantuan figure had appeared before the vixen beast. The single-arm berserk ape's breathing was haphazard right now. Each breath that he huffed out was steaming with heat, evaporating the moisture in the air before him into mist. Sensing the explosive aura of this single-arm berserk ape, that male beast from before was petrified right now. However, he had to maintain his image of a man before this vixen beast. How could he bow down in cowardice just because of this aura from the single-arm berserk ape? Roar! The male beast growled back at the single-arm berserk ape. It was as though he was informing him, follow the rules. No matter who you are, you've got to queue up accordingly. The vixen beast stared at this male beast in disbelief. To think that this weak little beast would show no signs of fear against the fearsome-looking single-arm berserk ape. Could it be that he was captivated by her beauty? Bam! That single massive arm of the single-arm berserk ape sent this male beast flying straight up into the skies. Right now, the light in the single-arm berserk ape's eyes was bright and limitless. Even the vixen beast was starting to feel some fear right now. Rawr! With a single howl, the vixen beast started to run away. This single-arm berserk ape before her was simply way too massive. She was afraid that she couldn't withstand him. But of course, how could the single-arm berserk ape allow this prey of his to just run away like this? There was a raging flame that was burning within his body, causing him to lose his sense of logic. Release. All he needed was an urgent release. Rawr! The vixen beast struggled, trying to break free. However, in the face of this single-arm berserk ape, she was too small and puny. Catching up from his chase, Lin Fan was stumped at the scene before him. Shit, it's over. No one can save the vixen beast now. Now that Lin Fan had fed the single-arm berserk ape so many vigorous, he had long entered a state of frenzy. The only thought on the single-arm berserk ape's mind right now was to pierce through any single gap he could see. In fact, it was hard to say. This single-arm berserk ape might even pierce Lin Fan himself after ravishing the vixen beast. Standing atop the gigantic tree, Lin Fan could not bear to view the scene directly. The tragic cries of the vixen beast boomed like thunder within Lin Fan's ears. It was filled with sorrow and misery. For the single-arm berserk ape, the vixen beast was nothing but a tenga egg right now. This was an unbearable sight to behold. Lin Fan covered his eyes as he couldn't bear it any longer. This was an eye-piercing scene. So traumatic. Boom. Suddenly, a loud booming sound rang through. That gargantuan body of the single-arm berserk ape had fallen onto the ground suddenly. It tried strugglingly to get up, but it was weak and feeble. Eventually, it gave up and succumbed to the weakness, closing his eyes entirely. Seeing the sight below, Lin Fan finally heaved a sigh of relief. Seemed like the effects were still pretty evident. But, it was a pity that it was all over for the vixen beast now. At this moment, the vixen beast laid on the ground. Her eyes were lifeless as she breathed slowly. However, Lin Fan knew that she was close to death's door. Highs, what a tragedy. Lin Fan shook his head helplessly. He then took out his eternal axe to get ready for the reaping. Ding, congratulations on killing utmost celestial full cultivation vixen beast. Ding, experience points plus 100. Since she was about to die anyway, he might as well reap her for himself. At the very moment Lin Fan killed the vixen beast, in a campsite not far away. A member of the ancient race jerked his closed eyes wide open. On that hideous-looking face, a look of wrath burst out from within. N-O-V-E in .c ohm. Who dares to kill my vixen beast? HMPH. In an instant, the figure disappeared entirely from the campsite. Looking at the beasts that had fallen around him, Lin Fan nodded in satisfaction. Even though this vixen beast had died a tragic death, she had done something that no other beast could have done for him. What a respectable beast she was. Dozens of beasts laid motionless in the area. And the reason for this was that mythical pill which Lin Fan had created. However, to these beasts, this was a tragic day. All slay. Raising his eternal axe, Lin Fan was like Jack the Ripper right now, his eyes shining with perversion. He swung down. Ding, congratulations on killing utmost celestial full cultivation beast. Ding, experience points plus 100. Ding, congratulations on killing Earth's celestial lower level beast. Ding, experience points plus 500. Lin Fan was having an extremely relaxed life right now, slaying left and right. All of these fainted beasts died without a single peep, as they were all converted into experience points for the strengthening of Lin Fan. He collected everything along the way till he finally came to the single-arm berserk ape. Ding, congratulations on killing Earth's celestial full cultivation single-arm berserk ape. Ding, experience points plus 4,000. Haha, what a spread. The more beasts I slay, the more pleasurable it gets. Absorb demonic chi. Flicking his robes, Lin Fan took in all of the demonic chi from these ancient beasts into his demon city. Converting them into nutrients, he nourished and repaired that semi-finished, pseudo-legendary weapon, Demon City. Lin Fan's biggest hope right now was to raise his personal strength as well as repair his demon city. Lin Fan pulled out his information panel and took a look. Bloody hell, I'm still short of 2,000 experience points. The experience points that he had gotten from reaping these beasts were plentiful indeed. However, he was still that bit of distance away from leveling up. Seems like it's going to be yet another restless night tonight. Lin Fan faced the skies and heaved out a long sigh. If he didn't get his cultivation state up, he would definitely be pretty restless for the entire night. Single-arm berserk ape, UFC King Apeshti moron. How dare you kill yours truly's vixen beast? You've really caused yours truly a huge ton of frustration. Lin Fan huffed out in displeasure. If he had the vixen beast, Lin Fan was confident that he could definitely wipe out this entire area in a short period of time. He could kill all of the beasts here easily for sure. But now, his capability to do that was no longer existent. HMPH, so you're the one who killed my vixen beast. Just then, a furious voice boomed out from skies as the voids rippled and broke apart. Lin Fan was stunned. He had not expected that the vixen beast was somebody's pet. Just as he was about to enter stealth mode, a lone figure appeared before him. Ancient race. The moment Lin Fan clearly made out the features of this figure, his face changed. This hideous creature beyond measures was someone from the ancient race. Lin Fan had not expected to go against anyone from the ancient race so soon. He wanted to make a break for it. But, when he caught sight of the ancient race being's cultivation state, Lin Fan flicked his robes. Hands behind his back, he glared at this ancient race being straight in the eyes. That's right, your granddaddy here killed that vixen beast. What, you're unhappy over it? Of course, Lin Fan would not forget about his true way of life. FCK up the weak, FCK off against the strong. Chapter 452, Breakdown. Complete and utter breakdown. Chapter 452, Breakdown. Complete and utter breakdown. Human race. The moment the ancient race being caught sight of Lin Fan, he wasn't too certain at first. However, after further scrutiny, he burst out into laughter, haha. To think that you truly are from the human race. Upon realizing that Lin Fan was a human, that initially furious wrath of the ancient race being disappeared entirely. In its place was a sense of excitement. What's wrong with the human race? Have you gone silly? Upon looking at the expressions of the ancient race being, Lin Fan was astonished. Don't tell me that the human race is your daddy. Is that why you're so happy? Because daddy's here. But don't worry too much, kiddo. Your daddy here already has a cheap son. Someone like you isn't qualified to your daddy's new son. Lin Fan chuckled. Haha, to think that the humankind still doesn't know that their race is on the brink of extinction. Seems like the gods of the ancient saint heavens are blessing me, for me, Gu Hai, to be able to find a human. If I bring you back, I'll certainly get a huge amount of credit for it. That malevolent face of Gu Hai was guffawing wildly. His gaze at Lin Fan was the exact same as a predator watching its prey. Lin Fan did not know what this guy was up to, but by the looks of it, he did seem pretty excited. Could it be that the human race was pretty important to the ancient race? At this moment, Lin Fan sized up Gu Hai carefully. He was pitch black all over, with an extremely hideous face. Compared to the human race, he was around 50% taller, causing him to seem like a mini giant. Those veiny muscles looked like they were about to burst out with power. Other than that, he looked exactly the same as any other human. But, if the Ancient One belonged to this ancient race, then the Ancient One must have been the highest level of existence within this race. As for this Gu Hai, he was practically the lowest level of existence in comparison. Earth's celestial middle level. N-O-V-L-B in .C ohm. This cultivation state wasn't that high. Lin Fan had the confidence in taking him down. Human, you better follow me obediently. Or, would you rather be dragged away by me after I turn you into an icy cold corpse? Looking at this human before him, Gu Hai placed a foot forward. That single footing contained a massive amount of energy, bursting out massively and covering the entire surroundings within it. Now that he had discovered this human, he did not want to let him slip from his grasp. Hence, he had to ensure that he was well prepared for anything. Lin Fan's current physical body state was at imperishable full cultivation state. He was around 2,900 experience points away from leveling up. If he had to make a comparison of cultivation state, his physical body should only be able to withstand blows of any being up to the utmost celestial full cultivation state. However, Gu Hai was an Earth celestial middle-level being. But, based on the situation, Lin Fan knew that this ancient race being would most probably not deal any lethal damage to him. Even if he decided to go lethal, Lin Fan wasn't that afraid either. After all, it wasn't anything easy for someone to want to kill anybody like Lin Fan. HMPH, you wanna take me away? Well, we'll just have to see if you've got what it takes to do so then. Lin Fan snorted coldly without a single bit of respect towards Gu Hai. And as expected, Lin Fan's reaction had caused Gu Hai to fly into a maddened rage. Since that's the case, then you're courting your own death. Instantly, that malicious face of Gu Hai revealed a cold smile. Disappearing from where he was, he teleported right in front of Lin Fan instantly and sent out a tremendous punch. Bam! Lin Fan used his hand to block this. Despite that, the massive surge of energy that was emanated from the punch caused Lin Fan to be sent flying into the distance. Ding! Eternal Immortality Experience Points plus 200. HMPH, know your place. Looking at this human who was sent flying by a single punch of his, Gu Hai's face was filled with contempt. Lying on the ground, Lin Fan could not help but think that the punch's strength was pretty decent. Of course, a punch of this level couldn't probably cause him to bleed in any way. But, based on the circumstances right now, if Lin Fan did not spit out some blood of his own, this ancient race being might take a blow to his confidence. With that, Lin Fan held his breath and gradually spat out some fresh blood from his mouth. Following which, Lin Fan struggled to stand up. With a hand clutching his chest, he gave off a look of torment as he continued, "Why, your punch didn't hurt at all. Ha 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 ha, human, you're simply way too weak. In order not to kill you, I've only used 30% of my strength earlier on. To think that you would still dare to talk back and put on a strong front. I'll let you know of Ji Yu Hai's true powers." Ji Yu Hai laughed maniacally as he rushed forth towards Lin Fan once more. A single fist which tore through the void appeared right before Lin Fan. Bam! Ding! Eternal immortality experience points plus 200. Lin Fan flew away once more. Looking at the beautiful night skies while he was flying away, he could not help but sigh exasperatedly. Seemed like show business was a tough career for an actor at times. Ugh! Yet another fresh mouthful of blood was spat out as Lin Fan pretended that he almost couldn't take it anymore. Lin Fan shook uncontrollably as he stood up. He stretched out a single finger, and with a shine of unyieldingness in his eyes, he went on, "I'll never go down. HMPH, we'll see how long more you can talk back for then." Looking at how this human did not know his place, Ji Yu Hai revealed a cruel laugh. "You had better stay down obediently." Bam! Ding! Eternal immortality experience points plus 200. I'll never submit to you." Lin Fan was like a stubborn 14-year-old adolescent right now, yelling with absolute indignance. "Shut up." Bam! Ding! Eternal immortality experience points plus 200. "Your fist can't kill me." "Shut up." You bloody human, since you're asking for death, then don't blame me. Ji Yu Hai was totally riled right now. To think that this human before him could be so resilient. How was he not dead after being walloped down so many times? Long live the human race. Yours truly isn't afraid of you. You can't kill yours, truly nope. Can you bloody use some strength? Lin Fan had been enduring Ji Yu Hai's punches all this while. However, now that his experience points for eternal immortality had stopped increasing, he leapt up suddenly and lashed out at Ji Yu Hai. Ji Yu Hai was stunned, totally bewildered by this human before him. Wasn't this fella half dead just moments earlier? How was he revitalized in an instant? Lin Fan's facial expression changed at that moment as well. **T. Not good. He was going to be caught with his acting at this rate. No, but that was not for sure either. He looked at the Ji Yu Hai. This person didn't seem to have a really high intellect. Changing his face once more, Lin Fan spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood continuously. His finger then wavered and trembled, pointing outwards as though he was on the brink of death. "Why, you'll never kill me." That stunned Ji Yu Hai immediately recovered from his stupor as he hollered out, "Brazen. You had better lie down." Looking at that fearsome punch of Ji Yu Hai, Lin Fan's heart leapt with joy. Bloody hell yes, it's finally here. Bam! Ding! Eternal immortality experience points plus 300. Ding! Congratulations on eternal immortality leveling up. Ding! Congratulations on physical body state leveling up. Physical body state, Earth celestial lower level cultivation state. At this moment, Lin Fan's lips curled into a grin. What an arduous trial he had to go through to finally have his physical body state level up. You bloody human, just what in the world is wrong with you? Why can't you die? Impossible. Ji Yu Hai's punches were raining on Lin Fan's body like a torrent of water. Yet, it was as though this human could just not die, as he stood up time after every single punch. In fact, each time he stood up, he was sent flying by Ji Yu Hai's own punch. But still, he stood up yet again. This continuous cycle of ups and downs had Ji Yu Hai's mind almost breaking down. You can't kill me. At this moment, Lin Fan struggled to stand up once more. Impossible. Ji Yu Hai was almost breaking down entirely right now. Both of his hands were scratching his head furiously as he howled, "You go and die." Bomb! It was a 360 degrees roundhouse punch. Receiving this punch, Lin Fan sighed in exasperation once more. Seemed like Ji Yu Hai was really on the brink of breaking down mentally right now. How long had it been since he had caused someone such anguish? Looking at this human who had fallen onto the ground, Ji Yu Hai's heart was chanting furiously. He must now allow this human to get back on his feet once more. Definitely not. Why, you can't kill me. Lin Fan stood up once again. In Lin Fan's mind, however, he was ready to reap in this guy by now. Looking at this resolute human who was standing firmly once more, Ji Yuhai stumbled back a few steps in absolute disbelief. He was a noble warrior of the ancient race. How could he not kill a single human? Chapter 453, Nearly Got Kill Stealed. Chapter 453, Nearly Got Kill Stealed. While Lin Fan was standing up against Ji Yuhai, two figures floated silently up in the quiet night skies. They had been observing the happenings below for a really long time now. At the same time, they were pretty astonished at what they had been seeing. They had not expected someone so resilient to appear in the ancient saint world. To think that he could retain such tenacity even while he was facing up against an ancient race being. Just what sort of powers are backing that person? Within the void, a young man mumbled to himself in utter disbelief. He said that he's from the human race. Perhaps that's the reason. The girl beside her was fraught with astonishment in her brows as well. It had been quite a while since they were up there watching from the void. Initially, they could not make out the situation at all. Hence, they didn't dare to make any noise. After all, the ancient saint world was fraught with dangers. One had to tread with caution in everything they did. The fact that there was an ancient race being below was especially precarious for these two figures in the sky. Even though they were hesitant to head down and take a look, their hearts were starting to waver the more they watched. The fact that this human race being wouldn't relent no matter how much he was struck down by the ancient race being was especially heart-clenching. In fact, he was even hollering out, "Long live the humans! You can't kill me!" Those words alone were like thunderbolts, striking away at the insecurities within their hearts. Their race once had the same pride as this man. However, in this cruel world, there were many traitors that had appeared in various races. These traitors backstabbed people of their own races and bowed down to the ancient race, all in the name of survival. Someone like him mustn't die here. The woman beside the man spoke up. That's right. In the ancient saint world, a loyal man like him is definitely rare. The man replied. The aura of that ancient race being is strong. He should probably be an Earth celestial middle-level being. But, if the two of us don't mess up, we should be able to kill him. The man continued. Brother Shu, your Vajra sword will has reached a state of perfection, where it could meld entirely within the void. If this ancient race being does not notice us, we can probably do it. The female carried on. All right, Zhang Shu nodded his head. In that instant, he waved two fingers. A flash of golden sword gleam sliced through the void silently and headed downwards undetected. ... Looking at how the ancient race being was about to break down, Lin Fan was overwhelmed with joy. He had already gotten most of what he had wanted. It was time to slay this being. Human, why do you just refuse to go down? Ji Yuhai howled madly into the skies. The amount of energy that was emanating from his body was wild. In fact, he himself was getting dazed and confused over everything. Lin Fan's face was calm right now. However, just as he was about to hurl some insults in the face of Ji Yuhai, a razor-sharp force pierced down from the void above. Holy FCK, there's a kill stealer. Lin Fan's face changed. Who in the world could tolerate this? This ancient race being was about to be killed by him. Yet, someone had appeared and wanted to take this last hit for themselves. Intolerable. Whether or not he could level up depended on this ancient race being. That razor-sharp and relentless sword will pierce through the void. Lin Fan was sure that this ancient race being would definitely be sliced into two if he did not dodge this sword will. But looking at the situation before him, it was evident that Ji Yuhai had not noticed this sword will that was hidden within the void. You had better stop that. Suddenly, Lin Fan leapt up from the ground. He rushed forward to Ji Yuhai and sent him flying in a single kick. At that instant, that relentless sword will emerged out of the void with tremendous force right before Lin Fan as it slammed down deep into the ground. Phew, what a close shave. Lin Fan could not help but heave a sigh of relief. Thankfully, he had managed to reach there in time. Otherwise, if this Ji Yuhai had been slain by the sword will, then he would really have to bawl out in tears. Seeing this, the expressions of both figures in the sky changed. Hurry. Let's go. Those two must be working together to trick us. Looking at how the human had kicked away Ji Yuhai from his sword will, there was only a single possibility that came into Zhang Shu's mind. That human must not have been what they thought he was. There was a pretty high chance that he was working with this ancient race being all along just to put on an act. And just as both of them were making haste to escape, a voice rang out. I don't need anyone's help for this affair. This fella has humiliated my race. I have to kill him myself for the sake of my honor. Of course, Lin Fan could say outright that Ji Yuhai was his experience points. If these guys were to kill him, yours truly would have lost all his efforts from before. Zhang Shu's brows creased. The girl beside him felt the same bewilderment as well. Ji Yuhai, who was sent flying by Lin Fan, shrugged his head and sobered up. Damn it, Ji Yuhai glared at Lin Fan. He then glared at the two figures up in the skies, as his face got ever more malicious. How dare you humiliate the human race? I shall kill you off today. Now that there were observers around, Lin Fan could no longer fool around with this ancient race being. Ving. Suddenly, Lin Fan vanished from where he was. The next time he appeared, he was right before Ji Yuhai's face. What? Ji Yuhai was evidently in disbelief. How could this human suddenly turn this strong? I'll slay. With the eternal axe in his arms, Lin Fan swung down massively. Bam! Ji Yuhai's pupils were dilated suddenly. He could not believe that he would die in the hands of a human. And one that he had half beaten to death at that. I am a decanus of the ancient race, and I'm blessed by the heavens. You shall be tormented with the fate of being hunted down by the ancient race for the rest of your life. With that, something shocking happened right before Lin Fan's eyes. From the two halves of Ji Yuhai's body that were split apart by the eternal axe rose a singular red light. Those eyes of Ji Yuhai's body glared at Lin Fan with a demonic gaze, as though they were carving his features into his memory. In that instant, the entire flash of red light erupted outwards from Ji Yuhai's body and disappeared between the heaven and earth. Ding! Congratulations on killing Earth's celestial ancient race being. Ding! Experience points plus 2000. Ding! Congratulations on leveling up. Cultivation state. Earth celestial lower level. ... At that moment, Lin Fan was doused in the pleasure of leveling up, as he could feel the massive surge of energy entering his body. Even though this wasn't the first time he had experienced such a feeling, it was still great each time he leveled up again. Up in the void, both figures were astounded as well. This human was so strong. Then, how was he walloped so badly by that ancient race being earlier? My gratitude to the both of you for your help earlier on. Lin Fan cusped his fists together and thanked those two figures in the voids. At the same time, he was curious. These two looked exactly the same as humans. However, there was a sharp glow of light that surrounded their bodies. The two figures slowly descended from the skies. I am Jiangshu from the Sword World. This is my fellow race member, Hai Lan. I am Lin Fan from Xuanwang World. Lin Fan replied. Indeed, the universe was infinitely large indeed. Seemed like humans were not the only beings with their appearances. There were other beings from other worlds that possessed similar looks as well. But, what was up with this sword world and what not? Did it mean that they were always playing with swords? Lin Fan naturally had to try to keep these two here. He had to dig out more information. By the looks of it, these two must have been living in the ancient saint world for quite some time now. They must know a couple of things here and there. Lin Fan then initiated the conversation with the both of them, asking them many questions that he had and did not know the answers for. Chapter 454. A small, humble goal. Chapter 454. A small, humble goal. What, you mean to tell me that I'm now a fugitive of the ancient race? How could that be? No one even saw me killing him. Lin Fan was lighting up a bonfire when he was stunned by the words of Jiangshu. At that moment, the entire woods fell silent, save for the crackling of the bonfire burning the firewood. Lin Fan had wanted to live life as a wretched vagrant under the radar while he was a weakling. Before he got strong, he had to take every single step one at a time. But now that this Jiangshu from the sword world was telling him that he was a fugitive, how was he going to play his game from here on forth? That's right, you remember that final howl of that decanus from the ancient race. He was making use of the heavens will of the ancient saint world to imprint your image over to the rest of his ancient race tribesmen. Jiangshu nodded his head as though he was already long used to all this. The moment you kill one of them from the ancient race, you're bound to a life of being pursued relentlessly. The only way forth is to turn stronger. Hai Lan, who had remained silent by the sides, finally spoke up. Does this mean that the heavens will of the ancient saint world is on the side of the ancient race? Lin Fan asked. No one knows for sure. But I reckon that your image should have already been spread out amongst those ancient race beings nearby. You had better tread with caution from here on forth. The moment one of those ancient race beings kill you, they'll receive the feedback from the heavens will of the ancient saint world. Jiangshu continued. Does this mean that the more ancient race beings I kill, the more wanted I become in their eyes? Lin Fan asked. That's right. Jiangshu nodded his head. Looking over at Lin Fan, who was deep in his thoughts, Jiangshu could not help but feel concerned for him. However, there was nothing he could do about it. He sighed eventually and looked up into the skies. I wonder when we'll get to the end of all this. Lin Fan was buried deep in his thoughts indeed. This method seems good. Someone like yours truly, who likes to put on a grand show, will definitely become a godlike character in this world as well. But, what use will it be if yours truly can have the ancient race submit to me without anyone knowing anything about it? How boring would that be? But to think that every single ancient race being he killed would be recorded down, and he would be declared a fugitive by the heavens will of this world, not bad. Not bad indeed. There was definitely a need to glorify this matter and allow it to invigorate everyone's hearts. Brother Lin, it's getting late. It's time for us to leave. I hope that we'll have the chance to meet again once more. After staying for a while, Jiangshu stood up and clasped his fist together, bidding goodbye to Lin Fan. Alright, we'll meet again if we get the chance. Lin Fan liked to go solo anyways, as he didn't like parties that much. After all, once a party was formed, there would be rules to abide by, and things wouldn't go as easily as right now anyways. What a pleasurable event it would be for him to run amok in the ancient saint world all by himself. That's right, there's something else I ought to let you know, Brother Lin. Before you turn stronger, you had better dodge away from the ancient race beings if you bump into them. After all, if you kill more of them, you might be targeted by some of the really strong ones from the ancient race. At the same time, you need to be cautious of some other races aside from the ancient race. That's all, goodbye. Jiangshu left his earnest advice as he disappeared together with Hailan. Bye-bye. Lin Fan waved his hands towards both of those disappearing people. Cautious of some other races aside from the ancient race. Lin Fan was slowly thinking through about these words that Jiangshu had left behind. But soon after, he chuckled, that's right. Yours truly is such a sinister person. In this dangerous world, who else can I trust other than myself? He. Jiangshu and Hailan, for example, both of them did not trust Lin Fan entirely from the beginning. All they shared with him was information that was commonly known to most people. Of course, Lin Fan could tell that from their reactions. That's why he did not bother asking them where they were headed for. After all, he knew he wouldn't receive a reply anyways. Thousands of miles away, tribesmen of the ancient race had many campsites and bases all around. Their bases were so huge that one could not even make out its boundaries. As for these bases, there were an uncountable number of these in this boundless ancient saint world. Even though different races from the thousands of worlds out there would ascend over here, amounting to a significant number of beings, they still paled in comparison to the ancient race. The difference in numbers was a gap as great as the heaven and earth. Within a tent, an ancient race being was arranging some stuff. Suddenly, the void rippled as a booklet appeared before him. The malevolent face of the ancient race being frowned as he took the booklet into his hand. Momentarily, a light screen appeared in the air. The image on the light screen displayed Lin Fan's final moments of killing Gu Hai. Lin Fan of the human race has killed ancient race Decanus, Gu Hai. A line of words appeared in the air. To think that it's a human. This ancient race being frowned upon reading those words. His face then grew ever more sinister. How dare someone kill my tribesmen in my territory which spans over a few thousand miles? And to kill a Decanus at that. Bloody damn it. The ancient race tribesman was filled with anger. Waving out his pitch-black hand, yet another few rows of words appeared. Whoever brings his head to me shall earn a place as a member of the ancient race. www. Pass down the orders. Kill this man. Carrying the voice of this ancient race tribesman, a ball of light flew out of the tent immediately. The moment this ball of light flew out, another ancient race tribesman entered the tent. Sir, Shu Wuxin of the Void World has killed his own father and brought the head over to us. This soldier knelt down and reported. Good. Reward him. He shall be promoted as a centurion of our ancient race. Yes, sir. Now that Lin Fan knew that he was a fugitive of the ancient race, he placed the matter slightly in his heart. At the same time, he gave himself a small little goal, time to kill more tribesmen of the ancient race. But based on the current situation, he had to take things steadily. As he looked at the pitch-black, dense forest, all he could do was rub his chin and give himself 5 words. Keep up the good work. 3 days later. All slay. Blood sprayed all over the skies as Lin Fan sliced a beast harshly into 2 parts. Ding. Congratulations on killing utmost celestial upper-level beast. Ding. Experience points plus 50. Highs. So bloody tough. So bloody tiring. I've been chopping down for 3 days straight now, such that even my wrists are tired of it. Why the hell were all of these a bunch of weak chickens? Lin Fan was exasperated. Not only were the experience points limited, all of them were dodging and hiding away like little PSSIES. It was difficult trying to find a beast these days. He looked at his information panel and felt like crying thoroughly. Name: Lin Fan. Cultivation state: Earth Celestial lower level. Experience points: 3,020 thousandths. Physical body state: Earth Celestial lower level. Physical body skill: Eternal immortality. Level 11. Physical body experience points: 615 thousandths. Potential: unlimited. To think that chopping down left and right non-stop for 3 days would only garner him a mere 3,000 experience points. He was still quite a distance away from leveling up. The only consolation that Lin Fan had right now was that his energy grid line chains were still being gathered on a daily basis. At the same time, the moment they were gathered, they fused into his physical body state. With that, the toughness of his physical body was constantly increasing. Absorbing all the demonic chi did some good to repair Demon City as well. To Lin Fan, this was the most difficult period of his life right now. But once he progressed a little more, that was when yours truly would truly shine. Even though the ancient saint world might be the world of nightmares for all the thousands of worlds out there, a man like Lin Fan only had a small and humble goal. Chop down the entire ancient saint world. He had to let all these ancient race tribesmen fear yours truly by just his name alone. The name of yours truly would be spread out across this world. And just then, Lin Fan's brows twitched. Someone had arrived. Chapter 455, Fan with all my might. Chapter 455, Fan with all my might. That human's location is nearby. I wonder if we can bump into him. 6 ancient race tribesmen were treading along the dense forest. Each of these tribesmen was accompanied by a leashed beast. The beast's size wasn't that huge, and its features resembled a wolf. An eerie green glow emanated from their gazes. HMPH, if I bump into that human, I'll be sure to devour him and get a good boost of nutrients from him. I wonder why our Lord would allow those small ants of the thousands of worlds out there join our ancient race. For those races to fight alongside us is nothing but a humiliation for us. Insolent, you dare to question our Lord's orders. I'm sorry. The facial expressions of these ancient race tribesmen were all malicious and dark. As they made their way through the forest, they did not bump into any beasts. It was as though all the beasts were purposefully hiding away on sensing the scent of their aura. Lin Fan entered stealth mode and hid inconspicuously at a side while checking out the 6 of them calmly. An Earth Celestial middle level. 2 Earth Celestial lower levels. 3 Utmost Celestial full cultivations. NOVEL-B in .C ohm. This seemed like a strong combo. Furthermore, each of those wolf-like beasts was an Utmost Celestial middle level being. That was pretty fearsome in itself. But, so what? To Lin Fan, these guys were nothing at all. He couldn't even give a hoot about them. He could squish bugs like that to death almost by the second. But of course, every single action he took required careful planning and a grand execution. Since these 6 had appeared here to court death, he couldn't possibly grant them an easy one. He had to think up of a good way to give them a good whooping. That way, they would finally know what true horror meant. As for the words of advice that Zhang Shu had given him, Lin Fan did pay heed towards them. However, how could one bow down in life? Since these fellas had turned up at his doorsteps, there was no way he could just let them off without slaying them. To Lin Fan, they were nothing but experience points. Lin Fan checked out his surroundings. After he took down these guys, it should be about time to leave this area. Since these 6 could track him down here, it meant that his rough location should have already been revealed out to them. Hence, this place was not safe for much longer. It was time to make a quick escape after he was done with them. Oh ho, I've got it, hee. Lin Fan's eyes glimmered, as he thought of his perfect trick. This was a treasure trove right in front of him. If he didn't make a good reaping of bounties before he left, he would thoroughly be letting himself down. Where has this goddamned human run off to? These are a bunch of useless B***starred pets. To think that they couldn't even track him down after so long. The ancient race tribesman hollered as he gave the wolf-like beast a kick. Even though the beast howled in pain due to the kick, it did not dare to resist in any manner. This type of beasts were the most sensitive to auras in this world. They could pick up the scent of their prey even from 100 miles away. Therefore, they were the pets of choice for the ancient race tribesmen to use for tracking down the ants of the thousands of worlds out there. However, they had been running circles around this place, yet they had yet to pick up any signs of the human at all. Growl. Suddenly, the beasts started growling all at the same time and rushed off towards the same direction ahead. Seeing this, all 6 tribesmen leapt with joy in their hearts as they chased after immediately. The ancient race tribesmen came to the location where Lin Fan was gathered earlier with Zhongshu and Hai Lan. Seems like it has been some time since the bonfire has been extinguished. He should have been here earlier on, the leader of the tribesmen remarked. Growl. Suddenly, the beasts started growling once more. However, this time around, they weren't darting forth. Instead, they seemed like they wanted to escape. Beastard's pets, what are you shishts doing? Looking at the cowardly manner of these beasts, the ancient race tribesmen were enraged, and lashed out at them using the whips in their hands. However, no matter how hard these tribesmen lashed out, it couldn't stop the actions of the beasts. It was as though something was terrifying these beasts so badly that they wanted to get out of this place immediately. Decanus, take a look. What's over there? One of the tribesmen suddenly pointed out at something. His face was pale, as he could not make out what was happening. All he could see was a huge cloud of mist floating over towards them from the forest ahead. The mist seemed to have covered the entire forest. Boom! Suddenly, a loud explosion rang out, as the entire ground started trembling. A gigantic tree toppled over, as though it was destroyed by the massive force of some wild beast. What the FCK is going on? The ancient race tribesmen's faces were filled with caution as they eyed everything suspiciously. Growl! A series of wild howls from beasts rang through the skies. It's the ancient beasts. The faces of these ancient race tribesmen changed. By the sounds of it, could it be that all the ancient beasts were approaching at the same time? Impertinent. We're tribesmen of the ancient race. All of you B***starred beasts, are you seeking death? The ancient race tribesmen had an innate aura that would cause the beasts to fear them. That was the reason why they could act so overbearingly in the presence of all these wild beasts. But now that there seemed to be beasts approaching them, how could they not be furious over this fact? The 6 wolf-like beasts broke out of their shackles and leapt away hurriedly. Disregarding these ancient race tribesmen entirely, they escaped into the forest and vanished without a trace. Boom! Just then, a towering colossal figure appeared from the skies, landing before these ancient race tribesmen. This! One of the 6 ancient race tribesmen stuttered out in disbelief at this scene. He could not believe or understand what was going on with these beasts. Huff, huff, one by one, wild beasts were surrounding these 6 ancient race tribesmen. Every single last one of these beasts were heaving out heavy breaths, with steaming puffs of smoke coming out of their noses. B***starred beasts, get lost. The leader of these ancient race tribesmen stood out as he carried forth a look of wrath on his malevolent face. But, it was as though that single holler had no effect on these beasts. The eyes of these beasts were burning red, as though they were in a confused daze. Growl! A series of mad growls rang out from their throats as they leapt out on these ancient race tribesmen. Brazen, their faces changing, the 6 ancient race tribesmen sent out punches. Far in the distance, Lin Fan was wearing a cloth over his face, and wielding a gigantic fan in his arm, fanning with all his might. At the same time, his 3-headed and 6-armed faceless sky demon was floating in the skies before him. Holding onto a bunch of bigras, the faceless sky demon was tossing them outwards one after another. As these bigras exploded, they turned into mist. Each time Lin Fan fanned, a mighty gust picked up, causing this mist to be blown in the direction forward. All fan, and all fan, and all fan. Lin Fan did not know of the actual impact his current actions would create. But he couldn't be bothered. No matter what, he had to give it a shot. Now that it was so difficult to find these beasts, nothing else mattered. Lin Fan refused to believe that his bigra couldn't cause these beasts to appear. Toss faster, Lin Fan ordered his faceless sky demon. Right now, the 6 arms of the faceless sky demon were like crazy windmills, spiraling intensely. One by one, these bigras were tossed up into the air as though they were free of charge. As they exploded, the thick, dense mist was blown towards the forest intensely. Ahahaha, let the storm brew ever stronger. Fan with all my might. Chapter 456, an extremely tragic and brutal crime scene. Chapter 456, an extremely tragic and brutal crime scene. Damn it, all of you damned beasts deserve to die. The leader of the 6 ancient race tribesmen smashed the head of a beast into smithereens with a single punch, sending blood spraying all over the skies. Decanus, what's up with these beasts? How are they so daring to attack us? Another ancient race tribesman asked with fright. If not for the fact that the ancient race tribesmen were born with innately powerful bodies, they might have already fallen after being surrounded by these many beasts. However, it was soon to be quite the tragedy for those 3 ancient race tribesmen who were at the utmost celestial full cultivation state only. I've got no idea, just kill our way out of this. The leader of the ancient race tribesmen broke into a cold sweat. Waving out his hand, the entire void rippled. However, this did not repel off the beasts in the least bit. And by the looks of it, all of these beasts looked absolutely frenzied. De Canis, save me. Suddenly, an ancient race tribesman called out tragically. He was being held down by a beast. Immediately, the beast pounced on the back of this ancient race tribesman and engaged in some forceful grinding. Arg, save me. The tragic cries continued relentlessly. In fact, the ancient race tribesman was not only held down by that single beast. He was surrounded by a couple of other beasts, as though they were waiting for their turns. Brazen, the decanus of the ancient race tribesman felt his heart jerk at this scene, and he struck out with immense force. By the looks of it, all of these beasts had gone entirely bonkers. De Canis, save me please. Yet another member of the 3 weakest ancient race tribesmen was caught by a beast. This time around, it seemed like it was a male beast. And of course, the result of this was even more tragic than the other ancient race tribesmen from before. In fact, there were no words that could describe the extent of cruelty. Once this scene was etched into one's mind, one could never erase it for the rest of their lives. An anus being torn wide apart, leaving nothing but traces of the debris of war. Far in the distance, Lin Fan was still hard at work, fanning diligently. To Lin Fan, this was all an experiment. If this could really work out, then he would have a new killer technique to employ in the future. Hurry up and toss them out faster. Toss out all of the pills. Holding on to his gigantic fan, Lin Fan swung with all his might. This was like a Category 10 hurricane. In fact, the ground was about to be ripped apart by it. Lin Fan did not know how things were going on ahead. But now that everything had gone silent, he was a little speechless. Could he have failed? That should not be the case though. Obeying Lin Fan's words, the 3-headed and 6-armed faceless sky demon tossed out all the bigras in one go. Pop, pop, one by one, the bigras burst out into small explosions. Taking in a deep breath, Lin Fan summoned a gigantic gust of typhoon and brought all the mist into the distant forest ahead. Phew, finally, Lin Fan stopped the movement of his arms. His arm was starting to feel sore now after that intense exercise. Looking ahead, Lin Fan's heart was filled with bewilderment and exasperation. Brothers, make some noise. Just a little bit will do. At least give me some motivation to carry on. Looking at the silent forest, Lin Fan was feeling extremely helpless right now. He looked over at his faceless sky demon and sighed gently, evidently disappointed. The faceless sky demon looked back at Lin Fan blankly, wondering what that entire ritual earlier on was for. Gra. Arg. Just then, a tragic wail rang out from that dense forest ahead. Holy sh*t. What's happening? That cry sounded so tragic. Just as he was about to accept failure, Lin Fan was startled by the sound. He then leapt up and burst forth towards the forest. Yes, it worked. Yours truly is a genius indeed. That's one small step for Lin Fan, a giant leap for mankind. Lin Fan's only thoughts were to enjoy the show right now. This was definitely going to be spectacular. Ah, De Canis, save me. These beasts are humiliating me. The 2 utmost celestial ancient race tribesmen who were captured were wailing out from the bottom of their hearts. The only feeling they had right now was the stinging pain in their anus. Looking at the scene unfolding before him, that hideous-looking decanus of the ancient race was incensed. You bunch of. However, just as the decanus of the ancient race tribesmen was about to lash out with insults, a nimble little ancient beast darted into a shadow and leapt right in the face of the decanus. Using its nimble long claws to grasp the head of the ugly decanus, its body started humping that hideous face repeatedly. Fucker. The decanus immediately grabbed the nimble beast in his hands. With a single pinch, he decimated the beast instantly. It was a horrifying sight as the meat and blood splattered all over. Huff, huff. Watching the entire scene, the decanus was filled with nothing but a fiery rage in his heart. What the hell was going on with these beasts? Why did they all seem to be going insane? Looking at the way his underlings were being treated, he was even more furious about everything. The ancient race is the noblest of all races. How dare you f***king beasts do such a darn thing? You're simply. But of course, these beasts did not give the decanus the chance to complete his sentence. Just as he was howling madly, they leapt over towards him again. To these ancient beasts, these ugly ancient race tribesmen were the most beautiful creatures in this world right now. Arg, you shits, let go of me, arg. Bam, bam, tragic wails, fearsome howls, cries of excitement. All of these different sounds formed a perfect harmonic, which permeated through the skies. Lin Fan leapt above from the forest. What happened to that utterly violent voice from before? But when Lin Fan arrived at his destination, he was greeted by nothing but utter shock. Every single thing he had known in his 21 years of life had been utterly destroyed in this one single moment. The ground itself was trembling in fear under the massive happenings above it. The beasts were all huddled up together in small groups. As for those beasts that couldn't squeeze in, they were busy poking the ground. By the time Lin Fan's gaze turned to those ancient race tribesmen, he could not help but take in a long, cold breath of cold air. This is cruelty beyond the heavens. This sight is just. Oh, you beasts, you degenerates. Just what sort of AB***** could commit such a sinful act that could shake the very foundations of morality itself? Lin Fan muttered in exasperation. Bigra, oh Bigra, to think that you're so ruthless. This is indeed a disruption of the world's harmony, a disruption indeed. Lin Fan had not expected things to turn into this wild orgy mess. If one did not have a firm heart as he did, they would have long been puking non-stop at the sight of this scene before them. 1, 2, other than those that were killed, there should be 20 beasts here. Not bad, not bad. It's just a pity that there are only 2 ancient race tribesmen left. Seems like the other 4 died a death that couldn't have been any worse earlier on. But no worries, let yours truly release you guys from this nightmare. Lin Fan took out his eternal axe. Entering stealth mode, he burst out forward. All chop, all slice, all slay. Ding, congratulations on killing Earth's celestial lower level beast. Ding, experience points plus 500. Ding, congratulations on killing utmost celestial upper level beast. Ding, experience points plus 50. ... These beasts, who were consumed entirely by Bigra, had already long lost their sanity and sense of wariness. Right now, there was only a single thought in their minds: they wanted to release that pent-up happiness within their bodies. By the time Lin Fan chopped down the final beast, his experience points had increased by 2,500. Not bad. Seems like this small little wave of beasts brought me a decent amount of experience points. As long as I continue working diligently in this manner, leveling up is just a matter of time. Absorb. Flicking his robes, Lin Fan sucked in all of the demonic chi within his demon city. He then came forth to the last 2 remaining ancient race tribesmen. Looking at the both of them, he shook his head helplessly. You are. The decanus raised his head to look at who it was. His face was filled with rage. Ugh. Lin Fan slammed down his eternal axe cleanly. Ding, congratulations on killing Earth's celestial middle-level tribesman decanus. Ding, experience points plus 2,000. ... Why, you're the human. I am a warrior of the ancient race. I'm not afraid of death. The last remaining ancient race tribesman glared at Lin Fan feebly while seething out diabolically. No-vel-p in .c ohm. Ugh, oops, sorry, whether or not you're afraid of dying, you've still got to die. Ding, congratulations on killing Earth's celestial lower-level ancient race soldier. Ding, experience points plus 500. ... Lin Fan swept his robes. Looking at the world around him, he could not help but shake his head melancholically. Highs, what a tragic sight of the world. Look at how the harmony of heavens and earth has been destroyed. Chapter 457. The Weird, Creepy Uncle and the Little Kid. Chapter 457. The Weird, Creepy Uncle and the Little Kid. B-starred. Looking at the light screen from the base of the ancient race tribesman was enraged by the scene that was being displayed. That damned human. How dare he humiliate their fellow tribesmen? He totally deserved death. The sight of those ancient beasts and their frenzied motions on top of their own tribesmen were especially infuriating. With a maddened palm strike, he slapped down on the table, breaking it apart. Soldiers, hunt down that human. Yes, the hideous face of this ancient race leader was ever more sinister as he glared at the screen with intense hatred. He waved his hand. Whoever kills this man shall earn the position of a decanus. This was a reward, and at the same time, served as an incentive for everyone out there from the thousands of worlds to fight for. This was an opportunity many of them would try to snatch for the sake of survival. ... Just how big is this ancient forest? How am I still not out of this place? Lin Fan had managed to obtain a map from scavenging the body of that decanus he had slain. He then took a good look at it. Based on his current location, he should be at the edge of the boundaries of this world. This was a desolate place that was devoid of humans. But to Lin Fan, this place was practically a sanctuary. After all, the most dangerous beings in the ancient saint world would most likely not reside here. They would probably be gathered at the center of the ancient saint world. Tearing through the void and traveling through it was out of the question for the current Lin Fan. He was bound by restrictions. Due to the firm, resolute strength of the energy between the heaven and earth of the ancient saint world, Lin Fan could not produce those past feats with his current strength. He could not help but admit that this was quite a tragic thing. Seems like the only thing left to do is to appreciate the sceneries of the ancient saint world slowly bit by bit. Well, I wonder how the forces and factions of the ancient saint world are divided up. Lin Fan was attacking wildly along the way. At the same time, he was pretty lost, not knowing where the roads were heading to. A few days later, when Lin Fan saw an entire valley of mountains ahead of him, he was completely stumped. Right after he had bashed through an entire forest, he was faced with mountains. Where were the flatlands? Lin Fan gritted his teeth. Damn it, you vicious world. Yours truly shall trawl through the mountains and continue pushing forth. PSHEW. PSHEW. Suddenly, Lin Fan's eyes squinted, as a shadow had just darted by him. How dare you sneak an attack on yours truly? Asking for it, Lin Fan slammed out with a punch. However, when he caught sight of the figure, Lin Fan's face was stunned. He halted his strength immediately. Twisting his wrist, he changed the direction of his punch as the void nearby shook with the force of his redirected punch. Suddenly, a cry rang out beside him. Ugh, that figure was a small little kid. Wielding a purple dagger in her hands, that kid stabbed at Lin Fan's chest. Clang, that sharp clash of metal rang out. The moment the kid's purple dagger touched Lin Fan's chest, it came to a stop. Ding, eternal immortality experience points plus O. How could this be? Impossible. That kid, whose face was filled with dirt, exclaimed out in disbelief. Hey, brat, nothing's impossible. Looking at the kid, Lin Fan grinned. He then lifted up the kid with a single hand. Let me go. Being lifted into the air, that little kid attempted to kick at Lin Fan with his short little legs. However, his legs were so short that they couldn't even come close to Lin Fan. Herg. Looking at how she couldn't get to kick at Lin Fan, the little kid chomped down hard on Lin Fan's wrist. However, that bite caused her entire face to flush red. She felt as though those pearly whites of hers were going to shatter at any moment. Lesser celestial lower level, Lin Fan could tell the strength of this kid in an instant. At the same time, this was curious. To think that a kid like this could have a cultivation state of a lesser celestial at his age here in the ancient saint world. That was pretty astonishing. If this were the Xuanwang world, this kid would be the genius amongst all geniuses. But, Lin Fan knew that the ancient saint world had special properties. Even if one were to not cultivate at all, the saint spirit chi of the world would slowly infuse within their bodies, raising their power level slowly but surely. And of course, if this were the Xuanwang world, this kid would still be quite a somebody. However, in the ancient saint world, she was nothing but cannon fodder. Oh no, no, no. Kiddo, don't be afraid. I'm a good person here. I'll definitely not do anything weird to you. With the face of a creepy old uncle, Lin Fan stared at this little kid that was dangling from his arm. At the same time, he could not help but sigh in his heart. This kid did look pretty decent. Even though the kid's face was filled with dust, his features were really exquisite indeed. There's a tail. Lin Fan was startled when he noticed a furry little tail coming out from the back of the kid. Kiddo, you're from the fox world. Lin Fan chuckled. You horrid fellow, let go of me. The little kid's face was flushed red as she tried to struggle out of Lin Fan's grasp. But to Lin Fan, this kid was even weaker than a little chicken. He wondered how a kid like this could survive in such a desolate area. Oh ho, no can do. You've got to answer my question first. Lin Fan continued chuckling. Yes. Eventually, the kid stopped and stared at Lin Fan while gritting his teeth. See, can't you see my tail? You stupid idiot. Oh ho, what a brazen little kid you are. Seems like yours truly would have to instill some manners into you today. Looking at how daring this little kid was, Lin Fan could not help remarking at that moment. This kid didn't even know how dangerous the circumstances she was in right now. Lin Fan loosened his grip and turned the kid around. He then dangled the kid in midair once more, this time round with his tail. Let go of me, you baddie. The kid was totally flushed red right now. Hugging onto Lin Fan's thighs, she chomped down again. But no matter how hard she chomped, Lin Fan felt nothing at all. Little kid, where are you from? Lin Fan knew that there must be others around for this kid to be here. But he didn't know where this kid originated from. What? The kid's face was confused before she continued struggling. Let me go. Otherwise, I'll make sure you can't even walk up straight after I'm done with you. Looking at the bewildered face of the kid, Lin Fan could feel some curiosity brimming within him. Where are your parents? He asked. Don't have any other adults. Don't know. Lin Fan was a little exasperated. No matter what he asked, the kid wouldn't respond. Seemed like this kid was trying to guard against him. Suddenly, the struggling kid noticed that the other party had released her. She gave off a really confused face. Little kiddo, the outside world is dangerous here. You mustn't run out alone like this next time, alright? Go on home, don't let your family members worry about you. Lin Fan's expression changed into one of benevolence. Don't think I'm a kid. You just want to follow me, right? The little kid raised her head and glared at Lin Fan suspiciously. Lin Fan was startled. To think that he was found out. Seemed like this kid had got some little brains. How could that be? Do I seem like that sort of a person? Okay, how about this? Let's play a little game. I'll close my eyes, and you'll run off to hide. Sounds good. Lin Fan beamed. Looking at Lin Fan, the kid nodded her head slowly. Alright. Looking at Lin Fan closing his eyes for real, the kid heaved a sigh of relief and burst off into the woods. Lin Fan grinned, wanting to play hide and seek with yours truly with just that bit of smarts. Sigh, it's truly lonely when you're the strongest. Time passed by the second. The kid remained hidden in the dense woods. Seeing as how nobody has caught up to him she let off a sigh of relief. But for safety precautions, she should just wait a little longer. But in actual fact, Lin Fan was squatted right in front of this kiddo, looking at him intently. Lin Fan had long entered stealth mode. But of course, it would be impossible for that kid to notice Lin Fan squatting before him The kid looked ahead. After ascertaining her safety, she grinned and ran off. Chapter 458. Seems like the human race is pretty famous after all. Chapter 458. Seems like the human race is pretty famous after all. Looking at the little kid prancing away from the forest, Lin Fan could not help but grin. By the looks of it, this kid seemed pretty familiar with this place. He wondered where the kid would lead up to. Before long, Lin Fan stopped in his tracks upon catching sight of the scenery before him. To think that a village would exist within these mountainous regions as well. At the same time, there seemed to be some mysterious, invisible membrane surrounding the village, preventing any aura from being emanated out of it, thus avoiding detection. This must probably be a safety measure set up by them. At the entrance of the village stood an elderly man. He surveyed his surroundings anxiously with a look of worry. It was as though he was waiting for something. Grandpa. Just then, the kid who Lin Fan had been trailing leapt out of the woods towards the direction of the elderly man. What's up with this situation? Lin Fan looked at the wings behind the elderly man. This was evidently a being of the wings race. How could he be the grandpa of his kid from the fox race? Zoner, where had you gone to? How could you run about like that? The elderly winged man's face was solemn. However, knowing that his granddaughter was safe and sound, he couldn't help but heave out in relief. Grandpa, don't be mad, alright. Zoner knows her mistakes. Zoner nodded her head. As though she suddenly recalled something, she continued, that's right, Grandpa. I bumped into someone outside. The elderly winged man's face changed for a moment. Ancient race being. Nopes. He looked exactly the same as me, just that he didn't have a tail. He asked me where the adults were, but I didn't tell him anything. Zoner giggled happily. Did he follow you back? The face of the elderly winged man grew stern once more. He had a bad feeling about this. This was a really isolated part of the world. How would anyone appear in the vicinity? Nopes. That guy was really stupid. So silly, hee. Zoner continued her giggles as she grinned with pride towards her intellect. Lin Fan, who was in stealth mode and standing behind her all the while, was helpless right now. To think that this little thingy would call him silly. That was unbearable, gosh. Little one there, it's not right to talk bad about others behind their backs, you know. A voice suddenly rang out. Zoner froze up on the spot. At the same time, the elderly winged man hurriedly pulled Zoner behind his back and called out warily, who's there? Everyone, please be at ease. I mean no harm. Lin Fan appeared before the both of them. I obviously hid away from you. How could you have? Zon was filled with disbelief right now. She had obviously left this guy behind. How could he have followed her back? Hey, little one there. You're too naive, aren't you? Lin Fan chuckled. He then cusped his fists towards the elderly winged man. I am Lin Fan, a member of the human race from Xuanwang world. I have just ascended into the ancient saint world recently. Looking at the suspicious look on the elderly winged man's face, Lin Fan felt that it was better for him to announce his identity to put the man at ease. At the same time, Lin Fan could not help but wonder just how treacherous the entire ancient saint world was for everyone to be consistently on their guard as such. And indeed, the moment Lin Fan reported his identity, that grim face of the elderly winged man gradually eased. However, he was still slightly guarded against Lin Fan. Human race. The elderly winged man seemed to be slowly reminiscing about something. Suddenly, his face changed. Please enter. Huh. Lin Fan was stunned. He did not understand what was going on right now. Grandpa, he bullied me just now. Looking at how her grandpa was being friendly with this stranger, Zon complained grudgingly. Zon, do not be rude. The elderly winged man patted Zon on her head gently. Little one, I did not bully you, ho ho. Lin Fan chuckled at the little kid. Zon tossed Lin Fan a glance and huffed out loudly before running into the village. This kid. The elderly winged man shook his head exasperatedly. Lin Fan then followed the elderly winged man into the village. The village wasn't too big. However, seeing the stranger Lin Fan, everyone's eyes were filled with surprise. At the same time, Lin Fan was curious about these people as well. There were all sorts of beings from different worlds here. What sort of a place is this? Lin Fan then followed the elderly winged man into a simple-looking house. It was here that Lin Fan found out that the elderly winged man was the village chief. At the same time, this village had existed for a long time without any outsiders discovering its existence. Within the house, Lin Fan accepted the tea that was served by the village chief as he nodded his head gently. Village chief, just what sort of a place is this? The village chief looked at Lin Fan and sighed. This is a place that was created just to avoid the strife of this world. Village chief, I noticed that you had relaxed immediately the moment you heard that I was of the human race. Could it be that you guys have some sort of connections to our race? Lin Fan's aim right now was to look for more humans. Looking at how receptive this village chief was towards the humans, it seemed as though he had some sort of relationship with their race. No, in fact, you're the first human I've met in my life. The village chief shook his head. Then why is it that? Lin Fan asked in bewilderment. Tens of thousands of years ago, all the races from the various worlds were living in immense danger and threat under the powerful ancient race. Back then, no one from any race would dare to even step out with any form of resentment or resistance against the ancient race. Eventually, 5 great beings from the human race stood forth and engaged one of the 8 utmost beings of the ancient race in a duel to the death. The village chief started. N-O-V-E in .C Ohm. Lin Fan's heart skipped a beat. To think that the heavenly emperor Yuan and the others would be so famous here. Seemed like their feats had allowed the human race to hold a respectable position in the hearts of these people. At the same time, Lin Fan finally understood why this village had people of all sorts of races. All of them were here to avoid the massacre of the ancient race, as well as those traitors who had betrayed their own races and now served the ancient race. Even though Lin Fan wanted to dig out more information, the village chief had never ever left this place. Hence, he could provide nothing more than that. Now that Lin Fan considered properly, it was easy to hide himself while living in these mountainous areas. At the same time, this place was surrounded by beasts as well. Seemed like it would be a decent place for him to grind some experience points. As long as he could get his power level up, anything else would cease to be an issue. Respect, freedom, these were things that were based on one's power level. Without power, everything else would just be a dream. Village chief, I'd like to reside here for a little while. Once the time is ripe, I'll make my way out. Lin Fan requested after thinking for a little while. What, you still wanna head out? It's really safe here while the world out there is extremely horrifying. I hope you'd be able to live the rest of your life here without having to experience the terrors of the outside world. The village chief remarked in astonishment. I do not fear the horrors. I bring with me the hope of the entire human race upon my ascension here. My purpose here is to open up a new path of hope for my entire race. Lin Fan replied with absolute resolution in his eyes. The village chief looked at Lin Fan before nodding his head in agreement. Thank you. Lin Fan expressed his gratitude. Chapter 459. A Little Girl's Shock. Chapter 459. A Little Girl's Shock. With that, Lin Fan began on his short stint at the village. At the same time, there was one thing that left Lin Fan pretty exasperated. To think that that small little kid would be a girl. No matter how he looked at it, she didn't seem like one. And she acted like a boy all the time as well. Zan did not have any parents. She was discovered by the village chief around the mountainous areas. By the time the village chief found her, her parents had already been killed by a mighty beast. In those mountainous valleys, you little sh*t, use more strength. A gigantic beast seemed like it was about to break down in front of Lin Fan. This beast was having an easy and relaxed life initially. However, after meeting Lin Fan, it was as though his life had turned into a complete tragedy. The beast had thought that he would be able to devour the person before him in a single mouth. To its dismay, it realized that this fella was tougher than a rock. He couldn't even bite down at all. Ding! Eternal Immortality Experience Points plus 100. And oh well be in .c ohm. Bloody hell, you're really too much of a trash. Lin Fan was completely frustrated right now. He had thought that this Earth Celestial middle-level beast would give him quite a good workout. To think that he was only fearsome to look at but totally useless. The experience points of Eternal Immortality increased by a pitiful 100 points each time. Based on this pathetic rate, how long would it take for him to level up? Oh, the beast no longer wanted to play with this fella anymore. At the same time, it cried out as though it was begging for mercy and seeking settlement for this issue. Can you please let me go if I don't eat you up? Stop your bloody cries. If you don't stop biting me, yours truly is going to mutilate you into pieces. Lin Fan gave the beast's gigantic head a tight slap as he warned it fiercely. The brutish-looking eyes of the beast were filled with sorrow right now. He was an ancient beast. How could he be in such a tragic state right now? Creak. The beast clamped down its massive mouth. That tasty-looking delicious hand was stretched into his mouth. However, it was tougher than anything else. The beast was chomping so hard that even his sharp teeth were starting to crack. Ding! Eternal Immortality Experience Points plus 50. Holy sh*t. Seeing the drop in experience points, Lin Fan was stunned. Not only was this beast not being diligent, it was actually slacking off. OWWW. OWWW. The beast looked at Lin Fan pitifully. It truly wanted to leave. It had been at this for half a day now. It could even feel its mouth getting numb and losing all the strength in its jaws now. Highs, trash. You're simply too trash. What use do I have for keeping you alive? I'll chop. With that, Lin Fan shook his head helplessly as he slammed his axe down. Ding! Congratulations on killing Earth's celestial middle-level beast. Ding! Experience points plus 2000. Absorb. Once Lin Fan collected everything he could collect, he sighed helplessly. The value of this Earth's celestial middle-level beast had been wiped clean by him entirely. When he had first discovered this beast, he engaged it in a fearsome battle. Even though this beast was high in cultivation state than him, Lin Fan was the most experienced in fighting against things beyond his level. Lin Fan kept the corpse of this beast within his storage. To these villagers, their livelihoods came from these beasts. Even though the cultivation states of everyone within the village wasn't too high, they could easily kill a low-leveled beast with their combined strength. I've got to continue searching. I'm just this much closer to getting stronger. After all, I can't stay here for too long. Hence, if I want to get stronger, I've got to look for way tougher opponents. Lin Fan thought in his heart. He then disappeared between the mountainous valleys, searching for higher-leveled beasts. But at the end of the day, this location was near the boundaries of this world. The high-leveled beasts would probably not take an eye to this area. After chopping for half a day, Lin Fan had only obtained 3,500 experience points. But on the other hand, he had obtained quite a fair number of corpses. Now that night was starting to dim, Lin Fan was prepared to head back. Within the village, Zan was feeling pretty unhappy recently. To think that Grandpa would allow this fella to reside within the village. At the same time, this fella was really uncooperative with the other uncles and aunties, and refused to work together with them. He was just a bloody leech. They hadn't even seen him around for the entire day. This damned fella, Grandpa must have been bewitched by him. But no worries, Zan wouldn't fall for his lies and deception. Everyone, head out and get your share. Just then, a voice rang into Zan's ears. It's that fella. Zan ran over immediately. She had to see just what this fella was up to. Lin Fan was standing at the village entrance and shouting out right now. Everyone in this village had low cultivation states. Hence, it was difficult for them to kill the beasts alone or regularly. Hence, most of them just planted fruits and vegetables in the village. Ever since Lin Fan arrived, the village chief had been really polite to him. However, he hadn't interacted much with any of the other villagers. This was because in their eyes, Lin Fan was still pretty much an outsider. These people who had been through terrible times and torments were naturally wary of outsiders. Zhan stood at a corner, pouting and looking at Lin Fan casually with one foot resting on the other. She then ran over and asked him in an unfriendly tone, "You skiving fella. Where have you gone for the entire day? This is not a place where lazy bums should come. Everyone here is working hard daily. We don't have extra food to feed someone like you. Zhan, do not be rude." Just then, the elderly winged village chief walked over briskly. "Grandpa, why are you always on his side? Look at him, he had disappeared for the entire day." Zhan's face was flushed right now as she stamped her feet in a huff. Looking at this little young brat, Lin Fan shook his head helplessly. He had only teased her a little. To think that she would bear a grudge till this day. At the same time, Lin Fan was bewildered. All the villagers were standing near the entrance just staring curiously. None of them would dare to approach Lin Fan, as though he would eat them up. "Village chief, I have toured around the vicinity today and slain some beasts. I'm here to share them with the villagers." Lin Fan smiled. "HMPH, slain some beasts, RIGHTTTTTTTTT. Just you, more like some small little animals, right?" Zhan refused to believe Lin Fan. "Zhan, I know, Grandpa, fine, I won't talk anymore." She tossed her head and stood aside. However, her sparkly bright eyes were still filled with distrust. "Little Fan, please don't put it to heart. Zhan didn't mean it," the village chief said apologetically. Lin Fan waved his hand dismissively, "It's all right. I won't bear grudges against a kid." HMPH. Upon hearing Lin Fan's remark that she was a kid, Zhan pouted her lips and snorted even louder. However, looking at how her grandpa was about to get angry once more, she lowered her head and stood there quietly. Looking at this little brat, Lin Fan could not hold in his helpless chuckle. Patting his storage, the corpses appeared out one by one. Looking at the densely laid out corpses of these beasts, the village chief was absolutely astounded. Those villagers were equally dumbfounded, unable to believe the sight before their eyes. This is the spinal beast. Upon maturity, it can hit even an Earth celestial cultivation state. The village chief remarked on seeing one of the corpses. "Village chief, please let the villagers split these amongst themselves. Let's take this as my rental for staying here for the time being." Lin Fan chuckled. Generally, ancient beasts could be consumed as food. As for these beasts that Lin Fan had slain, not only were they edible, they were really delicious too. How can we accept this?" the village chief commented in embarrassment. These were really important for the village. "It's alright, I'm slaying beasts every day for cultivation purposes anyways. It'd be a waste to dump these corpses away," Lin Fan replied. "Alright then, let me express my gratitude on behalf of our villagers then. Guys, hurry and take the corpses to prepare for storage properly," the village chief ordered to the villagers. Zhan was frozen on the spot once more. Her little peachy mouth was open so wide one could pop an entire egg within it. Lin Fan looked over at Zhan and smiled. Catching Lin Fan's smile, Zhan stomped her feet on the ground and left in a huff. Chapter 460, I won't reject you. Chapter 460, I won't reject you. Night time, Lin Fan sat there cross-legged, immersed within his inner world. The mythical parasol tree was rooted firmly, deep within his inner world. Flourishing with green leaves, the life force was gushing rapidly and boundlessly. Seems like yet another branch has grown out, and it is still sprouting out leaves. Seems like this ancient saint world is just a treasure trove after all. To think that the mythical parasol tree could even take in the saint spirit chi and germinate on its own through that. Lin Fan initially had no idea how he should groom this tree. However, after a period of time in the ancient saint world, he realized that the mythical parasol tree was starting to grow by itself. And by the looks of it, its rate of growth isn't slow in the least bit. In less than a few days, quite a number of leaves had grown on it already. By the order of things, this mythical parasol tree was chopped down from the ancient saint world and fell into the Xuanwang world. Now that it was back in the ancient saint world, that could be the reason why it was growing once more. The boundless and limitless life force produced by this was a vital treasure for Lin Fan. Lin Fan was also hoping for the mythical parasol tree to grow faster as well. Once it finally matured, there would be no place in this world he couldn't go to. At the same time, he still could not figure out what the firmament blood and heaven and earth sutra did. The only thing he could hope for was that it wouldn't be too absurd. When he received the eternal axe, it was already in a damaged state. But, if he were to follow the meaning of the god of war, the shards of the broken eternal axe should be somewhere within this ancient saint world as well. If he could retrieve them and piece it all back together, it should be a true legendary weapon at that time. And based on the hints of the god of war, he should almost definitely hope that he would not bump into any of the 8 utmost beings of the ancient saint world before the eternal axe was repaired. Otherwise, the eternal axe would definitely deal no damage to them at all. But of course, these were issues that were too far off Lin Fan's considerations right now, and he couldn't be too worried about them. Within another house, Zhan lowered her head, standing before her grandpa. Those bright eyes were filled with grievances. Zhan, you need to respect him from now on, do you know that? You can't continue being rude the way you are. The elderly winged village chief was telling her patiently. Grandpa, why is that? She lifted up her head. That's because he's a human. He is the same race as those heroes. The village chief replied. Hero, but Grandpa, you're the true hero in my eyes. If not for the fact that you've been defending this village tirelessly, all of us would have long died. Zhan knew of her birth circumstances, that she was from the fox race, as well as how her parents had died. The village chief shook his head and fondled Zhan's head. Grandpa cannot be considered a hero. Tens of thousands of years ago, when the ancient race was massacring all other races, none of us dared to voice out nor resist at all. It was because of the 5 fearless human race heroes who stood up against one of the 8 utmost beings of the ancient race that brought about a fearsome war, which darkened the skies and shook the heavens. This was the first time Zhan had heard of this story. Hence, her heart was filled with curiosity as well. At the same time, she was filled with respect towards those 5 fearless heroes. Grandpa, what happened after that? Zhan blinked with her long lashes. No one knew of the exact circumstances afterward. All we knew was that the utmost being who fought against them never appeared in the ancient saint world ever since. But you must remember that without the 5 fearless human heroes, this piece of world here would have never been released from their control. Without that, this village would have never existed either. After all, no one could live boldly in the open under the watchful eyes of the ancient race. The village chief replied. Therefore, you must remember once more that he is from the same race as those fearless heroes. Even though it's been a long time since any humans have appeared, we must still carry a heart of gratitude. Do you understand? We must not let the humans be disappointed with us. The village chief explained. Upon hearing her grandpa's words, Zhan nodded his head eventually. Yes, Zhan understands. If the Supreme Being were still alive and had heard these words, he would have died of shame. It was the truth that they were heroes indeed. However, they had only drawn the Ancient One into the Xuanwang world for that last bit of hope. While it was the truth that they did defeat the Ancient One eventually, it was also the undeniable truth that they had sealed up Xuanwang world due to fear of the Ancient Saint world. In the end, the Heavenly Emperor Yuan was the one who had an unwavering intent to return to the Ancient Saint world and continue their resistance against the ancient race. Within the house, Lin Fan was hard at work in cultivating pills. Under his extravagant usage, he was almost out of bigras. Thankfully, he still had tons of herbs left. Before he ascended to the ancient saint world, he had already prepared a lot of medicinal herbs to be used in times of need. In fact, Lin Fan had swept the entire medicinal herbs storage within the glory sect entirely clean. Pills through thought. A flame rose in Lin Fan's palms. Even though the flame did not have any heat of its own, it was said that the inner temperature was something beyond anyone's absolute horrors. Bigra is already a miracle pill that I'm so used to right now. However, perhaps I should give it a makeover when I've got the time. After all, the cultivation states in ancient saint world are simply way too high. Our old pills may not have the capabilities to catch up with the prowess of the beings here soon. These were the thoughts in Lin Fan's mind as he took a look at the pills through thought. However, nothing had yet to come into his mind, as to how he could complement the effects of Bigra with other medicinal herbs. Just then, Lin Fan flipped his palm over and extinguished the flame. He could feel the presence of someone approaching. Knock knock, please enter, Lin Fan replied casually. Creak, outside the door, the petite little cute Zhan stood under the gleam of the moonlight. Her little fox tail was swirling around behind her. Zhan's head was lowered with her fingers playing with one another, as though she was really nervous. What's wrong? Lin Fan sympathized with the background of this little brat as well. He wondered how many other kids in the ancient saint world suffered the same fate as her. Upon ascending into the ancient saint world, life and death were almost no longer in the control of anyone's hands. After all, no one knew what would happen in this place. Zan was nervous and embarrassed at the same time. It was as though she was finding it difficult to say the words out of her mouth. However, upon seeing Lin Fan's benevolent smile, she gathered her courage and said boldly, "Sorry." It was as though she had used up all her strength into saying this single word. At the same time, her entire face was flushed red. Hearing this word, Lin Fan smiled. Just as he was about to reply her, Zan sprinted off out of the house. What a cute little kid. Looking at the small little figure that was running off, Lin Fan grinned. From the beginning, this little kid hadn't been friendly to him in the least bit. But, Lin Fan had never placed it in his heart at all. After all, she was just a kid. As he flicked his robes, that wooden door closed by itself once more. In the depth of the night, the winged elderly village chief smiled to himself, heartened while witnessing the entire scene. A few days later, Lin Fan headed out into the woods daily to hunt down those beasts. As for their corpses, he brought them back to gift to the villagers. The villagers no longer carried the same wariness they had towards him. At the same time, they had a newfound respect towards Lin Fan. From time to time, Zan would appear before Lin Fan as well, as though she was waiting for something. This day, as Lin Fan headed back to the village from the woods and handed the corpses over to the villagers, he spotted Zan in the distance once more, as he was ready to head back to cultivate himself. Zan lowered her head. However, her eyes would dart towards Lin Fan from time to time. Seeing this, Lin Fan smiled. Was this little brat trying to make friends with him but was kept from doing so due to the embarrassment of it all? Perhaps, she was trying to catch his attention by appearing near him from time to time. For the first 2 days when Zan did so, Lin Fan had no idea what that little kid was trying to do. However, now that he thought back carefully about it, that did seem like a plausible reason indeed. Zan was lurking around Lin Fan like a little ghost. At the same time, she was a little unhappy in her heart. Had he not noticed her? Zan This time, Lin Fan was the one who took the initiative to call out to her. Yes. Upon hearing someone calling for her, Zan was elated with joy. She then skipped to Lin Fan's face. "Did you call for me? Are you trying to be friends with me? If you truly want to be friends with me, I guess I wouldn't reject you," she said with a look of anticipation. Lin Fan looked at this 1-meter tall brat and smiled to himself. What an interesting and cute kid indeed.